So this is the April 21st, Tuesday, April 21st, Select Board meeting. How about Tanya or Andrea? Can one of you unmute and let me know if you can hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent, both of
Yes.
you. Okay, so we're ready to go then. I see the entire Select Board is present, so that's our call to order. And we'll begin as we usually do with public comment. Public comment is up to 3 minutes for items not elsewhere on the agenda. If you're in the room, please approach the microphone at the table. If you're online, please raise your hand to be recognized. And do I see any comments? All right. Seeing none, I'll give a moment. Nobody online? All right.
All right, so we'll move on to
Consent agenda, please.
consent agenda. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda?
I had just one. I noticed that the address for the nomination for Liz Rust is missing, so she's at 201 Commonwealth Avenue,
Okay.
and we'll just correct that for the appointment.
Okay.
So that's item E-4. So the nomination for the DEI Commission.
Okay, great, thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. All right, well, with that, make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the corrected address of 201 Com Ave for Liz Russ.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
All right,
Select Board appointments.
we'll move on to this. I'll just note that in these appointments, we have the MCI committee identified, and I am one of the individuals on that committee, so I'm going to pull myself off the first list, and we can have a separate vote on that, okay?
Okay.
Anything else? Any other comments?
I just wanted to question about the reappointment of Joe Palumbo to the DEI, so I don't know if we want to pull it off just for a question, or do we ask it now? Or?
Do you want, yeah, let's just.
I just
ask him.
didn't know, was he nominated? I'm not remembering.
He's
Was he-
reappointed, so if you've been nominated, if you're on the board, the reappointment just appears on the appointment section of the agenda. If
Is
they don't
that-
get nominated again, you just go right to
You don't?
reappointment. Nope, you don't.
Yeah.
You just get reappointed.
So if people are reappointed,
Yeah, so that's.
it was a point of procedure.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
If they're
yeah, yeah.
reappointed, they don't have to
Second
be nominated?
Right.
They don't
if
have to
they're
get
already on.
renominated because they're on the committee already. They're just
Okay.
reappointed. So. All right, with that, here we go. All right, I make a motion to appoint Marie Alexander of 172 Ministerial Drive to the Personnel Board for a term to end May 31st, 2029, and Tim Mulvey of 59 Old Bridge Road to the Personnel Board to fill a partial term to create staggering, it's not a
Create
word at all.
staggering.
Create staggering appointments to expire May 31st,
Yeah.
2028.
Exactly.
And John Boynton of 72 Chestnut Street to the MCI Concord Master Plan Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2027. Aaron Cusker of 61 Cumberford Road to the MCI Master Plan Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2027. Burton Flint of 1643 Main Street to the MCI Concord Master Plan Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2027. Dan Gainsborough of 12 Mill Run Lane to the MCI Concord Master Plan Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2027. Matt Johnson of 21 Winthrop Street to the MCI Concord Master Plan Committee with an APP 10, Section 7, C2 exception for a term to end May 31st, 2027. Skipping myself, and then Sven Weber of 50 Belknap Street to the MCI Concord Master Plan Committee with an APP 10, Section 7, C2 exception for a term to end May 31st, 2027, and reappointment of Joe Palumbo for a second term to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission for a term to expire term from June 1st, 2026 and to expire May 31st, 2029.
I have a very, very small detail, but Aaron Cusker is Comerford Road.
Comerford Road.
Comerford.
C-O.
So,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
so it's just
CO.
misspelled here.
It's just a mis-
Okay.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Yep.
Thank you. Any further corrections or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then I'm going to just read my motion. Can I
So,
make the
Wendy,
motion myself?
Well, before you read it,
Yep.
why do you need, what's the exception? What,
Because I'm on the select board already, and so my appointment is a select board appointment to this other committee. That's the reference to when you create a committee that's got
Right.
members from other committees.
Yeah.
That's what that exception
think
refers to.
I think the way we get around that one in this case, though,
Yeah.
is when we created the charge, we said a select board member or designee. So
Right, but it's still,
still.
it just qualifies
Yeah.
under why I'm on a second
fine.
committee,
Right,
I think.
okay.
yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I'm not sure you need it, but I don't think it.
Yeah, well, I'll just covering our bases,
Yes, that's
right? So-
Right.
Okay, so I'll
Okay.
make a motion. Okay, Wendy Revelli, 42 Bow Street, to the MCI Concord Master Plan Committee with an APP 10, Section 7C, 1, exception for a term to end May 31st, 2027.
Second?
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Thank you all for your willingness to serve. It's pretty much what makes this town government go around. So just a couple of things on the chair's report. I wanted to start with a thank you to the Public Celebrations Ceremonies Committee for the Public Works Department, the Public Safety Department, and the Economic Vitality team, and I'm sure I'm probably forgetting somebody, but it was a really great Patriots Day event yesterday. It was nice to have the town to ourselves a little bit compared to last year, but it was very well organized and just a lot of fun, so thanks for that. Next week is town meeting, starting on Monday night. Town meeting starts at 6:30 PM for the regular attendance. It's the select board's practice to notice the meeting an hour earlier. We'll be meeting in the Learning Commons, and I'm going to forget the room number.
242.
242, thank you. And I wanted to double check because of the change in time. We don't necessarily have any specific items of business for Monday night, but it's, just because it's the first night, it's a good idea to get organized. Tuesday evening, we will meet with the planning board and have a discussion about Article 35, the wireless overlay, which we're also going to talk about this evening. And the anticipation is that we'll make our final recommendation there once we've had a chance to have a dialogue with the planning board. And Wednesday, unless something else occurs, I'm anticipating we're probably not going to need to meet in advance of town meeting, but that's, so I wanted to, I know that's early for folks. Have you got a?
I have a Monday problem. That's
Okay.
not just that meeting. I have just found out, I think I'm going to be out of town for
Okay.
work, so I can catch up with you after or something, but
Okay.
I just, I'm not sure that I'm going to be there at all on
All right.
Monday.
Well,
And I know there were some things that, while there wasn't anything I was scheduled to present
Yeah.
for, there were some things that I was listed as sort of the backup in case type of thing, but I apologize, I'm not sure that I'm gonna.
all right.
So we might have to,
We should probably review those then. If there are any statements that you had prepared and you want to delegate somebody else to do
Yeah.
that, then we'll run down that list. We can pull it out.
so
when we
yeah,
get
my
to town meeting.
apologies.
Got quite a few.
Sort of came
actually,
up
for
on
the first night.
short
The
notice
first
that
night.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
gonna have to be out of town, so.
I don't think there were any that were speaking, right?
No, there were none, I checked the list
Yeah.
today, there were none that I was scheduled to speak
Yeah.
on. It's
So-
just, sometimes we're still listed as, if there's a,
Someone comment?
like, there's a school budget thing.
Yeah, yeah,
okay?
yeah, that's true,
Like, we're not scheduled to present on it.
Okay.
yeah.
So
So,
what I'll probably ask then is for some volunteers to back Cameron up for that, probably through, I don't know, this is where we get to handicap how far we're going to get on town meeting on Monday night. But
Yeah.
it looks like anything up till Article 18 would be a good idea to have covered, and then there's quite a stretch where we don't have you listed, so.
Yep.
Well,
So,
I'll do
yeah.
7, 8, 9 as a backup.
Okay.
Again, my apologies.
Yeah, no. We
I'm
are
backfilling
expecting
for
it,
somebody
yeah.
who was supposed to do something that had a family emergency, so I'm,
Understand.
Yeah.
Those things can happen. Okay.
I'll do 13, 14, 15.
All right.
Well, on 16 as well. And 17, I'll do the school set.
Okay.
Goes through 8?
Does that cover it? I think that
I
covers it.
think it does.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thank you. So sometimes when we meet early, we have, are there food trucks at
No.
town meeting this year? Okay. So sometimes we provide for
We would have
food.
approved it.
Yeah, well, I thought we could have, we had one
Doesn't matter, sorry.
previous year.
Sorry.
Yeah, all right. So the question is, should we schedule food or not?
That's at 5, is that 5 PM?
5:30, we would be meeting in the Learning Commons.
30.
I don't care.
I don't
Okay,
think so.
you don't think so? I was
I don't think
inclined to
so.
say no. Bring a sandwich, feel free to eat it.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
It's really,
Just-
thanks.
Just wanted to cover that base. The first meeting after town meeting is going to be May 18th of the Select Board, and the next meeting that's scheduled after May 18th was going to be
June
June 8th. And in looking ahead at our schedule, we were considering changing the June 8th meeting to the June 1st meeting, so there's not quite such a gap. So that's more or less a heads up calendar-wise. Let me know if anybody has a concern about that. We'll get together and talk through agendas with town staff tomorrow. So does anybody right now know that June 1st would be a problem?
No.
Okay.
No conflict
Good.
All
from my
right,
end.
great.
So when
Okay.
do we vote officers?
The May 18th meeting would be the normal one to do that. Okay,
So
so there's really only,
no meeting June 8th, so we go 2
Right,
weeks.
you know what, the MCI charrette is going to be starting that
Right.
week, so
Right.
that first night is going to be a public event there, so we wanted to avoid that date.
So I'm sure we'll set the schedule, but should we assume that 2 weeks after that? Just trying to plan
I
ahead.
think we're going back to the regular schedule, so after that, is it June 22nd, do the schedule?
yeah, June 22nd, and that's the last one that's scheduled.
Right.
So working with staff, we'll publish a schedule usually
Okay.
for the remaining 6 months of the year.
That's good.
And that'll be, we might even sneak that into the discussion on Tuesday night, just to make sure that it looks good to everyone.
So just to review, June 1st and then June 22nd.
Yes.
And
Yes,
then we'll figure it out. Okay.
right. And so May 18th is the only scheduled meeting in May.
Right.
So the weekend in between those two is Memorial Day weekend. Okay, great. And lastly, I got an inquiry. At our last meeting, we met, and we discussed the mural for the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail underpass.
Yep.
And there's going to be an advisory team put together from that. And the ask is if anyone from the select board is interested in being part of that advisory team. Obviously, they'll be coming back to us for final approval, whatever they come up with, but if there's an interest,
Who's they again?
this is economic vitality, basically Mimi Graney.
Huh.
She's,
First I've heard of it. Okay.
yeah, it came in this afternoon, so,
I'd love to do that.
would you? Okay.
I like tunnels.
You like, you like being in the dark?
Tunnel art?
Okay,
Bring light to the dark.
that's what we've got then. Thank you, Paul. All right, town managers report, please, Carrie.
Okay, thank you. I really only have one item that I wanted to mention to you tonight, and that is something that you saw this afternoon. We are going to relaunch the website tomorrow at 11:30 a.m., so Wednesday, April 22nd. Don't mean to be particularly dramatic about that, but we do have to pick a specific time. This has been under development for quite a bit. The new website includes an updated design, improved navigation, and better access to commonly used information and services. Our goal is to make it easier for residents to find information, complete tasks, and stay connected with town government. This work is also part of our broader effort to modernize how the town communicates with and serves the community. I wanted to offer my thanks to our staff, particularly Donna McIntosh, who was our communications manager, who led the project and coordinated contributions of various staff members in HR, Public Works, Community Development, Minuteman Media Network, the clerk's office, and the town manager's office. And so we do have some updates going out through our media on this. You did see a picture of it. You will notice that we've changed the colors. We're using blue and green, which I think really makes things stand out. We've updated some of the pictures. One of the items that we will include on the front page is a grant tracker. And I hoped that I would have a snapshot of what that looks like to share with you, but we did not get that. So it will be on the front page. I think it's in the bottom right corner, and it will just show a total dollar amount of grant funds that have been received by the town in the current fiscal year, and you can drill into that, and then you can see what the specific grant applications are. So this is we'll be pulling data from right now a standalone spreadsheet, so it's not directly pulling from our financial ERP system, and so it's not going to be 100% accurate all of the time. We're hoping to have a direct link at some point in time, but I think it'll be a nice feature. I know often we will get questions about the grant funds that we receive, so you can see by department and category, and hopefully people will find that useful.
Sounds interesting.
Congratulations, that's a big deal.
Yes, big deal.
So, feedback, I'm sure there'll be feedback from a lot of people. How should feedback be sent to whom?
So the town manager's office, Donna McIntosh, who is the communications manager specifically, or really the general TMO email address is fine as well. We'll receive it.
Great.
Okay.
Look forward to it. There are a lot of comments around the website, so I think people will be eager to
That's
see
really-
that. So.
Will the search function be improved?
It will be somewhat improved. We are also working on an AI agent that is an enhancement to the search function. It's smarter than the regular search function. We do not have that ready just yet.
And is it a good assumption that the town meeting pages that people are looking at and as they prepare for town meeting are largely unchanged for the
The content is not changed.
Okay.
Just the color, look and feel.
The color and maybe how you access those pages.
Okay. Good.
Hopefully we'll check that out right away.
Yeah.
So tomorrow,
You said
right?
11:30?
11:30.
11:30 a.m.
I'll hold you to it.
Okay.
It's out of my hands. It's so.
I'm sure
Ready or not. here we
overwhelming, it'll crash for 10 minutes.
go. Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
probably what will happen.
Hopefully it does.
All right.
All right.
The Financial Audit Advisory Committee FY24
Okay.
town audit
All
report.
right, so you all have in your packet sort of a letter which represents the audit report from the Financial Audit Advisory Committee. We did have some preliminary findings that were reviewed in early January, but this is the formal report that the committee has prepared. Let me just note that the FY24 town audit represents the town and all its departments, inclusive of all the enterprise funds. And I'll note that CMLP is included, and CMLP runs on a different fiscal year. They run on a calendar year budget, so the calendar year 23 audit results are incorporated as is into the town financials. And also of note is Concord Public Schools is part of the town, and so those financials are included in this result as well. The report delineates the roles and responsibilities of the audit committee. I'm not going to go through that in detail. The report gives notes that the audit itself was delayed this year, and it was delayed in FY '24. It really didn't get started in earnest until the spring of 2025, primarily because of the Munis conversion. But the financial statements themselves are a fair representations of financials. The financials for the town are in good shape. The net position is well over, close to $309 million, an increase of over close to $18 million from the prior fiscal year. So good financial status. Of course, when we reviewed this in January, we had an extensive discussion around material findings that the auditor had. There were 4 of those financial material findings, and I'll go through them briefly, although we did have an extensive conversation already, but for the public, I'll recast them. The first issue that was identified was the delays in the reconciliation of cash and receivables, and in fact, they weren't completed until 12 months after the end of the fiscal year. And at the time, there were some accounts that were not reconciled at the completion of the audit. Now, obviously, this is not something that's clearly not acceptable from a town perspective. In January, when we reviewed this issue, the CFO committed to addressing these issues and completing all month-end reconciliations within 45 days of the close of a given month. We expected that those cash receivables would be reconciled in March, and then the actual receivables in June. So the committee will continue to monitor that over the coming months.
So do you know if we're up to date?
Well, we have not met on this particular topic. No, we're not right now. I shouldn't say that. We can hold questions later. There may be another update, but we'll be monitoring those. The second issue was that expenditures were not always allocated to the appropriate fiscal year, which is obviously also a concern, and that includes accounting of capital assets. There were improvements made in those workflows, as CFO mentioned at the time, starting with the beginning of procurement through accounting and with the final town accountant sign-off. Those workflows have been put in place. There's been additional training to address that, and obviously at the end of this fiscal year, in June, those procedures are going to be monitored quite carefully. So we'll see more of those findings at the end of this fiscal year when we close out. The third item relates to the general ledger. Contains some outdated budget information, which clearly just didn't reflect the actual approvals from town meeting. That issue had been addressed in December of 2025, and new procedures in place. Obviously, at the end of this town meeting, those procedures will also be closely monitored. The fourth item that obviously I think was of great concern was that there had not been a second level of review for journal entries that had been made throughout the fiscal year. So that procedure had been addressed immediately by the CFO in December when it was identified. So there is a new internal procedure for the assistant accountant and the town accountant to review those transactions. So I think we discussed this in January, and we noted that some actions had been taken on those particular issues. But the Financial Advisory Committee hadn't even met on the audit at that time. The committee did have a formal review of the audits. We had some extensive discussions with the leaders of both the Finance Department and CMLP. We really tried to dig into what some of the root causes are of these issues. We looked at staffing changes. We looked and tried to understand the impact of municipal conversion. We looked at training issues, and also looked into issues of communication, because obviously the audit was completed. The Financial Audit Committee had not even been engaged to review those financials when we first were aware of them. So those were issues of concern by the committee. What we did find following these conversations was that there clearly was a high level of turnover in the finance department, as some of which we discussed over that period, and there was an extended vacancy of the assistant accountant position for quite a period of time, which led to some of these challenges. We also are aware that in the Munis system itself, Training was well in place when we went live. The Munis system today, the staff are pretty fluent in the procedures that are necessary to run that application. There's training that's needed outside of the finance department, but not inside the department right now. And that training is going on for other departments. But probably the largest issue is the complexity. We have sort of it's a systemic complexity to the reconciliation process that happens within the CMLP, it's called NICS ERP system and the town's ERP system, and you can all relate to the fact that you have a light bill, a water bill, sewer bill, and a stormwater bill. So you've got 4 invoices, and you go to the town and pay it with one payment. So it's a many-to-one reconciliation that has to happen, and then there can be adjustments on both sides. So you often have money adjustments on the town side into many transactions on the CMLP side. So it's complex, and you have to have the right, it's just careful transaction reconciliation that has to happen. So that obviously was a concern. And then I'll just comment that we had some lengthy discussions around communication around the audit. We reviewed all the history of the announcements of the audit. And obviously, the Financial Audit Committee itself has a responsibility to help we have a role in the evaluation of a new auditor. We would normally be responsible for initiating a discussion around changing an auditor. And we did make a decision, the town manager and the CMLP director are both made a decision to hire a new auditor for FY25. So that was obviously also of concern from a communication perspective. And so we've discussed at length the decision for changing the auditor, and we feel comfortable with that. But that's a discussion and an evaluation that we want to continue to closely monitor going forward. So the committee itself is taking some actions as well as a result of this. First and foremost, we've reevaluated our meeting cadence, looking forward about when we're meeting and on what topics we're going to be meeting. That's not complete, but we're understanding what those normal communication schedules are, and we will not miss a meeting. We will meet even if an audit is scheduled to complete, but if it hasn't completed, we're still going to meet, right? So we're not going to have an issue like we did where we had no meeting for a year because an audit hadn't occurred. The other, obviously, that in terms of the material weaknesses that were found, we are going to monitor each of those issues, and we will have regular reporting over the next year to continue to monitor those, to make sure that cash receivables are being done and that the procedures at year-end are closed appropriately. We also believe that there's an opportunity for some broader review of internal controls, and we've agreed with Jennifer to have some ongoing discussions on other controls, the ones that are in the audit, of course, and others that she feels she's made additional improvements to. And then we will be asking about others as well. And lastly, the audit committee asked both the finance director and CMLP to look into the complexity issues that are systemic between the two systems and ask the question if new reporting, new data integration, or other system upgrades could help us with this reconciliation process and make it more efficient, clearly. And it has to be accurate above all. So those are the actions of the committee at this point. I'll note that the FY25 audit for the town is well underway. The audit for the region is also complete, and we'll be meeting about that audit in May. We expect to have the town audit reviewed in June, and CMLP's calendar year 25 audit will be reviewed in August. So I'm pretty confident that we're getting back on our normal cadence for audit schedule. So that's the good news. And you'll get ongoing reports as needed in terms of those audits as well. And just in terms of these, the system recommendations, we expect to follow up in probably the early fall on what the findings are between improving those reconciliation processes, systemic changes, or any recommendations. So.
Well,
What is the normal cadence? You say we're getting back on normal cadence. What?
I would say for 2 years we've been out of cycle. The
Right.
23 audit was a year late. The FY24 was a year late. So the normal cadence, think about this way. So the CMLP, they have a calendar year basis there. The normal schedule is they're doing audit field work right now, and the audit is generally available in June more like July final. That's CMLP, and we're probably on schedule to have that review. And from the town,
For 2025, yeah.
now that one, well, that'll be their calendar year 25.
Okay.
Calendar year, because they're on a calendar year. So our FY '25, just as standards, think about, we're about to close FY '26 right now, right? Well, let me just say, I'm skipping '25.
Okay.
26 ends on June 31st, '26. That audit work will, probably won't start till the fall. The goal is to have that audit ready sort of December, January timeframe, and then probably a report to this committee in February. We also discussed the same audit schedule with Bob Conry from the region, and he's operating on the same schedule. So he's expecting his audit to be ready in probably in January, late January, early February. So that is the normal cadence that we'll
So you
see.
expect the FY '26 audit will get us back on normal cadence?
Yes, I think so. And the FY '25 is going to be done. So that's what I mean by catching up.
So is it fair to summarize what normal is that for the given budget entity's fiscal year, the audit is usually completed about 6 to 7 months after the
6 to 7,
close
yeah. Yeah.
of the fiscal year?
Yep.
So what complicates it is that because the light plan is offset by 6 months,
Staggered.
Right.
syncing them is.
Yeah, the only other dependence is that there's usually an actuarial evaluation for OPEB as well as the retirement system. So the audits are subject to those evaluations being complete. So in the last couple of years, I don't think that's ever held up the audit. It was a long time ago, but I don't think that's a concern anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, the FY '24 audit was 18 months. This one's going to be like 12.
Yep.
I'd like to get it down to 6 to 7.
Yeah, it should be, yeah. And I think we'll be there for next year.
Okay.
So I'm really pleased with
Once the
the,
audit's completed 6 to 7 months out, then the audit advisory committee meets and reviews that, and that takes another.
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, it takes a little
Sorry,
bit.
Mary,
Yep.
I
That's
interrupted.
okay. I'm really pleased with the response that we've had to the issues that we've had with our financial audits, and I'm really looking forward to the work that we're going to be seeing in the summer and getting back on track. So I think we're definitely headed in the right direction, and I hope we keep the momentum and the focus.
Yeah, and the financial audit committee is also going to look at their charge, I think, appropriately. And then, we're meeting again in May, and I suspect we'll have topics for coverage May, June, July, August, even if the audit isn't ready. There's a few other topics we'll be reviewing, so.
Good.
So Winnie, thanks for that. You mentioned system complexity.
Yep.
And sort of taking a look at that. Is there process complexity? Is there organization, org structure complexity? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because, there's systems,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
also the processes that we undertake, the way that we're sort of structured.
Yep.
I don't know all the details of what that
Yeah.
looks like,
Yeah.
right? But are we also looking at that?
So that's the ask of the, well, I wouldn't say organizational ask. We are asking CMLP, Jennifer and her team, to look at the reconciliation process. What is that complexity? Are there system upgrades that could help, data integration updates that could help? As CMLP itself has its own ERP system, and it needs its own system because a utility needs its own system. We're not going to merge that with something else. But, the challenges of having water and sewer on that system, is that needed? Is it not? Does Munis have a system that could support water and sewer? Maybe. I mean, I think the question was, everything's on the table. Have the experts look at that system
Yeah,
and
yeah.
figure out what would work, is really what
Yeah, I just don't want to overlook that they're oftentimes very
organizational.
intertwined, right?
Oh, yeah,
What are the processes
absolutely.
we're
Yep,
following?
yep,
How is the team set up and
Yep.
understanding their roles and responsibilities?
Yep.
And how does that feed into sort of the systems that we
Yep.
use? I just want to make sure that there's like a holistic look
Yeah, fair.
at those things,
Yep.
because so often, they're intertwined. And
Yeah.
that's all,
Yeah.
just in my experience. I've put in good system stuff that
Yeah.
then people don't use.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know how to use it, or I'm
Yeah.
resistant to change, or whatever the case may be, right? So just want to make sure that we're looking across that spectrum.
Yeah.
I will say that, in my career, I made quite a good living by helping people automate processes by first redesigning the processes, right? So first we would redesign, and that was a very, very lucrative and very productive effort. In municipal government, what I've learned by looking at municipal government is very different. And we tend to just keep piling work on.
Well, but that, okay, yeah, that's my point, though.
Without ever having the time or the investment made to help look at what are the processes and how can we engineer those for efficiencies. It's a very different approach. So I hear what you're saying. It's just that my experience just observing is that we don't have the time or the investment or sometimes maybe even the will to do that correctly.
Well, I think this is an opportunity to ask the question, what could we do, knowing where we are? And so,
Yeah, what
if there's
can
a
we
system
realistically
upgrade
do?
or some migration, there's another piece of business process reengineering that you would undertake
Yes.
around that, so.
Yeah.
It's hard.
The-
It's hard.
The comment in here about taking a look at what the linkage between Munis and NISC is probably the most important one. The thing that maybe most people don't recognize is in the last decade, the town has installed 2 modern ERP systems, the Munis system for the town side and NISC for the electric utility. And even though water and sewer runs as part of town departments, the decision on behalf of us as citizens was to try to create a consolidated utility billing system that would present those bills together. But as Wendy mentioned, that many to one, we get to write one check to the utility and then have that broken out under the covers. That's some complexity that is essentially there so that a single customer service contact is available, and the fact that those are entities running on different fiscal years is completely invisible to us as customers and users of these utilities. But now that we do have these 2 modern systems, it is sensible to try to look and see whether the capabilities of those systems are able to make that link, recognizing, of course, and it sounds like we've got some experience around the table with these kinds of things, that, we may turn out to be one of the very few customers of either one of these large companies that provides these utility ERP systems that needs this integration. And so,
Yep.
we all know what that means in terms of consultant and implementation time. So those are difficult choices to make, but it's the right question to ask, in my opinion.
So,
Carrie, do you have anything
Oh,
you want
God,
to
I
add?
don't know where I would start.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Cameron asked a question about the status of reconciliations, and I think that would be best answered by Jennifer, if you're interested. Just where you are with regard to reconciliations. Yeah.
Yeah, just because it said
Yeah.
will be
You're
done by
gonna
March
target.
26th, I was just curious.
You're the target
where
for
we-
March for
where we-
cash and
where it
June
stands,
for
that's all.
receivables.
Yes, so we are in progress with the reconciliation. We're currently finalizing January at this point, so we are a little further behind than the target we had anticipated when we set that schedule in November. Each step has taken just a little bit longer. One of those involved training a new staff member to assist in that process. So cash is currently sitting in, we're close to the end of January, and obviously February has been started in the process of completing February. And then those files are with, the July through December files are with the accounting office, and they are through October in their side of that reconciliation. Once they get through October, where we know we had several updates and changes in journal entries and timing issues, we're expecting those to kind of fall out of our reconciliation and be able to move forward a little bit more quickly. There were a lot of adjustments made in October for systems transitions and things like that. And we're working on the receivables as well. we've been concentrating on the newer receivables, the stormwater and solid waste, only because they are newer and they were implemented in the new system. So we wanted to see if that reconciling process would inform a process for the water sewer by taking a smaller data set. And that is in progress. We're working on kind of the methodology. Again, as another new staff member working on this process. So we've been basically throwing every hand on deck at this reconciling that we can. So we intend to have everything up to date by the end of the fiscal year so that we can close the year in a timely manner.
Good.
But we're developing those processes for new things. We are also, one of the questions was that we're balancing our receivables to an outside system. So we're trying to figure out a good process for translating that into the new system. So the receivables are tracked by parcel or by address in one system, but we want to be able to confirm those balances in the Munis system. So we're working on that as a commitment process, which has not been traditionally done. So we're working on that kind of reporting, pulling those out of the one system in order to officially commit into the new system. A lot of work going on
Yeah.
on multiple fronts with that.
And as you're going through this process, right, is the team like, hey, we're really excited, this is positive change, we can see great stuff happening? Or is it like we're overwhelmed and we don't know how we're going to get this done? And oh my gosh, like, just getting a sense of, no, I mean, like, what's it like? What's it like for the team?
I
Because
would
that's really
say-
important, right, is,
Coming up with a solid process for tracking in relationship to like the new commitments that I mentioned, that is getting some excitement. We're looking forward to having that concrete number to be able to base our reconciling with. Using the multiple systems is challenging, especially as the accounting side and the treasury side are only doing one portion of the interaction in that other system, whereas they're doing all portions in the Munis system. So we're trying to figure out how to work those two together until we can understand what those differences are. We have a sample first commitment, just we're getting things in a trial period, and there were a lot more pieces in there than we had anticipated on the accounting side. So figuring out what that looks like. I think we're kind of digging into figuring out that process, which definitely has some excitement for finance as well as for CPW.
The staff are engaged, and that's half of it.
Yes, and I believe that the staff has been, with regards to training new staff and getting more people involved in the reconciling process, I think that the staff has been eager to learn how to do something new. So they're not just doing only one step, they're learning the whole process so that they can contribute at any point to that process.
I know, Wendy, you mentioned the staff turnover in the finance department. I'm not sure that I heard mention of the turnover at CMLP. So
Yeah.
we have a relatively new business manager at CMLP, 6 months?
Yeah,
Six-ish.
maybe now.
So she is new. We have a new business manager in Public Works who came to us with experience using Munis, and particularly Munis utility billing. So I think we have a really good team outside of the finance department, and inside of the finance department, we have a fabulous team led by Jennifer, and I couldn't be happier with the work that she's done. And I mean, anybody who's worked with her, she brings a level-headedness and a sense of care to the work that is being done that is really, really appreciated by the team that's been there, that has been, going through tough times over the last couple of years. So she's really brought a sense of stability to the organization.
Thank you.
And we did include Anne from CMLP in these discussions, and she certainly knows her stuff as well. So certainly welcoming the opportunity to look into those details. So it's a great collaboration. So.
Good. Well, thank you for the updates.
Welcome. Sure.
Thank you, Wendy, for your attention to this, and I'm sure it's on the right track.
It is.
Okay. That brings us to the report from the Tax Relief Evaluation Task Force. Lynn and Ellen? Thank you.
Good evening. Megan, you've got the
Yes.
slideshow coming. Thanks, everyone. It's good to be with you, and it's good to finally be able to present the results of a lot of work that's gone on by the task force over the last year. First, thank you to the Select Board for having nominated such an amazing group of people. I think we've all really enjoyed working together. We've all enjoyed learning from each other as we really dug into a whole range of issues about what is meant by promoting economic diversity in the town, what is meant by affordability in light of the financial stresses faced by many of our residents. How have other towns dealt with tax relief issues? We really grappled with a whole range of topics. So I think I'd like to turn to Ellen first to present some of the quantitative analysis that we did, and then we will continue on.
Get to slide 4. So one before that.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, we used basically 3 key sources of data. And the important thing is most of our analysis was based on the assessor's data. So it was based on real data from the classification hearing last November and from the FY26 RTE qualification process. The third source was our survey that we sent out last fall, and that was because, as we explained last fall when we presented to you in October, we didn't have any access to information on income that wasn't in the aggregate, median income for the town, per capita income. So if we really wanted to understand low income and affordability, we had to collect income and assessment at the homeowner level, at the respondent level, which we did. So we had a great response. We had 804 surveys returned, 861 from homeowners, and that is a 14% response rate from the homeowners in town. That is awesome. It's better than Lexington, so we did better than them. However, renters, no way. We had a 2% response rate, 43 renters. So everything that we say about renters, please take a little bit with a grain of salt, because we really didn't have enough information to respond really accurately at a granular level about low-income renters. The survey overrepresented seniors, and no surprise, overrepresented those who filled out the RTE. So next slide. We really looked at analysis at 2 levels. First was homeowners and condo owners. There's 5720, we call them homeowners. Those are people who own homes and condos in town. 69% of those qualified for the RTE, 1,814 did not. So what does it mean not to qualify for the RTE? It is you're a rental unit, you're renting your home or condo, it's a second home, you are a recent owner, you didn't move in by January 1st of the tax year, or, and this is real, people just decided not to apply for the RTE. We don't know who decided, by the way, who did or did not decide to apply for the RTE, but basically 69% of homeowners did qualify for the RTE. We then looked up at a much higher level, all residents in town. We looked at all housing units, and the Concord Housing Production Plan was essential for this analysis. We came up with 7,066 housing units, and surprisingly, 1,820, that's 26%, are rental units. And that includes not only rental units in apartment complexes, but homes and condos that are rented. Okay, next slide. The RTE's impact on qualifying homeowners is really based on 2 factors. The first one is the exemption, and that is $155,057 that is deducted from each home or condo's assessment to come up with the taxable assessment. The next piece is the 6.9% increase in the tax rate, went from $12.21 to $13.05, and that is because the RTE had to be revenue neutral. You had to collect the tax levy regardless of giving a tax reduction to some folks and increase to others. So if you look at the left-hand side, that is the impact for 9 different assessment levels in terms of dollars per year of decrease or increase in taxes, and the right-hand side is the percent change in their tax bill. For example, if you look at a $1 million home, and that's the third bar from the left, you'll see that that home or condo got a $1,183 tax deduction. That represented a 10% tax decrease for them. In contrast, $4 million home, $1,337 increase in the tax bill in the year, and that represented a 3% increase. So what's the break even? The break even is not a policy decision. It's simply the math of the RTE, and it's the point at which the reduction of the assessment, $155,000 more or less, is basically is not cancels out the benefit of the tax reduction in the assessment. $155,000 is canceled out by the increase in the tax rate. So the break even is a fact of the RTE math. You can't change it, and that's an important qualification, or rather clarification, when we look at the RTE.
Next slide.
Next slide. The timing of the RTE was, in a way, unfortunate. We called it the perfect storm. The RTE coincided with the third event of some pretty important events that affected taxes in town. First was COVID, which drove the demand for high-end homes, causing a disproportionate impact on assessment. If you look on the right-hand side, those are the red numbers. That's increases for houses worth more than 1.6 million. They increased from 40 to 47% in 3 years. That is huge. Less than 1.6 million was 30 to 35%. The impact was, for high-end homes, a dramatic increase in the assessor's office for requests for reassessment. So that was the first kind of impact. The second was a debt service for the middle school. I think it was more like 103,000 rather than 110, but still increased the tax rate by maybe $1 per thousand of assessed value. The third was the introduction of the RTE. And that had, as you saw on the previous slide, disparate impacts on individual tax bills. The result was the RTE became a flashpoint for town division. And we saw this in spades in the verbatims we got in the survey. A lot of discussion, which Lynn will go over, in terms of discontent on how the town is being managed.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Thank you. Next slide. So we also did an assessment of Concord's real estate market within the town, but also relative to some of our neighboring towns. And we found that one of the striking features is that the availability or inventory of single-family homes has declined over the last 5 years. And yet the average sale price is going up significantly. What is the effect of that? The effect is that both for first-time home buyers trying to buy into Concord, as well as for senior homeowners in Concord trying to downsize, there's competition for more modestly priced homes in the town. This, of course, is aggravating a sense of lack of affordability within Concord. On the other hand, realtors have reported to us that the residential tax exemption has really not been a topic of discussion for the most part, especially in terms of buyers coming to town. They're not aware of the RTE. They don't understand what effect it might have on their overall tax bill. And realtors actually were asking for more information about the RTE so that they could use it as a selling point.
Lynn, can I ask you a question there? Mm-hmm. The word inventory in the very first bullet, that's the inventory of homes that are listed for sale, not the actual total number of single-family homes, which I assume has been stable or even increased a little bit over the last 5 years.
That's a good point.
Yeah, okay.
It's not supply, it's the availability.
It's the availability of homes that are on the market, in effect. Okay, thanks. Okay, that's, yeah, it's just, it could be read that we think that there's a decline in actual homes, but there isn't.
So another part of our analysis in terms of understanding the context for the RTE was to look at tax rates and tax bills to see whether Concord is an outlier compared to towns around us. In fact, when you look at, we produced a sample of 11 other neighboring towns. Concord's tax rate is right in the middle of that distribution, and thus the tax bill for a modest I don't even know how to describe it, for a $1.5 million home would also be in the middle of the distribution across those homes. It is sometimes cited that Concord has the 5th highest average tax bill, and we would underscore that that's because the distribution of home values in Concord is skewed. We have a number of very high-value homes that makes that average look quite high. Another way of comparing Concord, the way the Department of Revenue does it, is to look at the average tax bill relative to the average per capita income. The Department of Revenue has that data, and I believe Concord ranks 259th on the list when you look at it that way. So our conclusion is that Concord's spending, Concord's tax rate is not out of line. Where we are an outlier, however, next slide, is with regard to the other 19 communities that have adopted the RTE. So those, of the 20 communities, and there are only 20 across the entire Commonwealth, 10 are towns on the Cape and Islands, and 10 are cities or towns in the greater Boston area. We put Concord in that second list.
Can I interrupt for just a minute?
Sure.
I want to go back to where you're talking about your conclusion that Concord is not an outlier, and you're talking about with regard to spending levels and tax rates. Do you mean rates or total property tax bills?
Tax rates,
The rate?
right.
Okay, so that, again, would vary based on assessments,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so just want to be clear.
Yes.
Thank you.
So when we look at Concord relative to those other 20 towns, 10 of them are towns on the Cape and Islands, where the proportion of second homes, vacation homes, non-year-round resident homes is quite high. We talked a week or two ago to Eastham, for example, way out on the Cape. 55% of those homes are second homes for people, are people who don't live year-round. And so when you adopt the RTE, what you're doing is you're shifting part of the tax burden from qualifying properties to non-qualifying properties. When you live in a town on the Cape and Islands with a high density of second homes, those second homes then bear a greater responsibility for the total tax levy. Within the greater Boston area, what is striking when you compare those communities is most of those cities or towns have a much higher percentage of rental units as a percentage of total units. You heard Ellen say a few minutes ago that in Concord, we have 26% of our housing units are rentals. Whereas in a town or city like Brookline or Boston or I forget all of the other communities that we looked at, they have much higher, 45 to 70% of their housing units are rentals. They too are not qualifying for the RTE. And so the RTE then again shifts, gives a tax break to homeowners below the break even, and shifts the tax burden to non-qualifying properties, including the landlords who own the rental properties. Ellen, we'll shift back to you.
Okay, next slide. So you asked us to look at the impact of the RTE in terms of promoting economic diversity and allowing seniors to stay in town. So we created two different metrics, effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness basically is the percent of whatever the target group, in this case, it could be like low-income homeowners, that get a tax reduction, get the benefit of the RTE. The efficiency is the percentage of that benefit, i.e. the tax reduction, that goes to your target group. So that's kind of in simple words what the metric source we use for our analysis. Next slide. The impact of the RTE was mixed kind of on all levels. In terms of just looking at low-income homeowners, you could say it was quite effective. It reached 85% of homeowners. They got the tax,
Of low-income.
homeowners, they got the tax reduction, which was the intent. If you look at seniors, it drops to 63%. And if you look at low-income homeowners, also 63%. 63% of all low-income residents, this is homeowners and renters, got a tax reduction. Primarily, the ones who got a tax reduction, they're homeowners. A few of the homeowners got a tax increase, and the problem with the RTE is all the rental units got a tax increase. So that's kind of the mix of effectiveness.
Ellen, in your analysis, how are you defining a low income?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's $150,000 or less. So low income is $150,000 in household income and high income is above 150,000 in household income.
And that number comes from,
We looked at the median income, which was like $217,000,
Right.
$212,000, and we looked at various other metrics, and that seemed like a reasonable number. Plus, we were limited by the ranges in our survey. So 150,000 was the top point of one of our ranges, so that's what we used.
We also did an assessment looking at very low income, which we defined as under 100,000 household income.
And you'll see that in one of the later slides.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of efficiency, the problem, and we, again, because of our sample size, this was most reliable, maybe looking at homeowners. The RTE is inefficient when you look at homeowners, that only 52% of the homeowners that got a tax reduction are low income, 48% are high income. So in other words, it's a 50-50 split at whether the tax reduction was focused on the target audience of low-income owners. So effective, if you look at homeowners, not efficient. And so that's kind of one of the major conclusions of our analysis. Next slide. Why is this? And it's basically the distribution of homes in town. This is a slide that looks at 3 different assessment ranges. 1, less than $1 million, the bottom bar. The middle bar is 1 to the break-even, which is 2.4 million. And then the top bar is above the break-even of 2.4 million. And what you see is that 26% of the homes in town, the 5720 homeowners in town, are below $1 million. It would be great if we could have the RTE only focus on that segment. We can't. That's where 72% of homeowners are low income in the sense of less than 150,000, but most importantly, 50% are very low income. That's less than 100,000. The challenge is that 61% of homes are between the 1 million and the break even. And there the income distribution is absolutely the opposite. 70% are high income. So that's the challenge right there in front of you. That to help, the break even helps both those 2 bars. And if you kind of eyeball it, you can kind of see that if you were to average it out, it's 50-50 in terms of the gray bar, which is high income, and the orange and blue bars, which are low income and very low income.
And this is homeowners?
These are homeowners, correct.
Right. So if you were to also look at income on those who don't benefit from the RTE, such as renters, right?
So it's hard for us to say anything quantitatively about
Yeah.
income of renters because of the small sample.
Yeah.
But the general assessment of renters is that, from the housing production plan, is that they are of lower income.
Correct.
And therefore more housing cost constrained.
Right, so I'm saying that in addition to this, you also have something that is penalizing renters who are low, who on average more often are low income.
Yeah, the next slide is probably the better summary because again, the numbers with the survey was just way too low.
Yep.
We got numbers from the assessor's office and those were right on accurate. So the next slide. This is the money slide. The RTE shifts $3.2 million of the tax levy from those people who qualify for the RTE and get a tax reduction to those who pay for it. So the question to your camera on is, who pays for it? And if you look on the right-hand pie chart, you'll see 30% of that 3.2 million is paid by rental units. That includes apartment complexes as well as houses and condos that are rented. The average increase for, as I said, there was 1,820 rental units in town, is about $390 a year. In some cases, the landlord can pass it on. It kind of depends on market supply and demand. And there's also about 450 rental restricted units where the landlord can pass it on because it's restricted by law to be 30% of a certain percentage of area media income. So
That was, did I hear you right, $390 per year,
yes,
per unit?
On average.
on average. It's lower for apartment complexes. That's more like 277 for apartment complex.
Yep.
And it's higher if you have a condo. $750,000 condo is more like $680 a year. And this is all in the report.
Yeah.
And a house of $1 million is more like 800. Okay, so it varies a lot. The average, and averages are always misleading, is 390.
And you can't tie that to income.
No, because I can't. I really don't know.
Get enough.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine.
It's hard to do. I get to Cameron's point and to Lynn's point. We know that renters are lower income than homeowners. And the other thing about renters is they tend to be under 40 and over 70. That between 40 and 69 tend to be homeowners. So and this is all, I'm parsing together information from a lot of different sources, can't draw conclusions, but in general, renters are lower income and are either younger folks, older folks. One thing Abby told us, which was awesome, was in the 1990s, the first time homeowners were more like in their late 20s, and now it's like more like in their late 40s.
40.
So you're trying to accumulate the equity to buy a home.
I remember that statistic.
And that is not just Concord, that's across Massachusetts.
And what percentage of total rental cost is the 390?
It's small, it's less than 1%.
Excuse me?
Less than 1% if you think somebody's paying,
2,500 to
2,500.
3,500 for an apartment rent
So
per month.
so 390 divided by 2,500, that's the percentage
yeah, it's about,
No, divided by,
of the,
390 is per year, so
Yeah.
divide by 12,
12, okay.
and then compare that.
390 per year.
we were saying 3840 for a renter's annual rent, and so that's, for an apartment complex, 277 is about 1%.
Or
So the
or in
RT
round numbers, it's $1 a day.
So the RT.
There you go, $1 a day, thank you.
So in other words, the RT penalty, which is being passed on, is small part of
It's
the rental.
Small when you divide it across apartment units, or
Yeah.
across rental units, more properly said.
Okay.
The aggregate is 30% of the 3.2 million shift.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's focus also on the other 70%. Some of those are homes who qualified for the RTE, but whose home value is above the break even. Those are people that perhaps the select board has heard from when they see a higher tax bill. But there are a lot of people, there are a lot of owners of residential properties or vacant land or group quarters who also are paying a higher tax rate, who don't benefit from the exemption.
So if you look at the top of the, sorry, no, it's a bit of an eye chart, but the top of the chart on the left-hand side, 3.2 million, there are about 3,800 people who benefit from the RTE. They get about $900 a year, just to kind of put numbers to some of the benefits and some of the who's paying. The green, which is everybody above the break even, doesn't matter whether you qualify for the RTE or not, your tax bill goes up. That's 32%. Again, this is about $1 million each, so it's 30, 30, 30 pretty much. And then, surprisingly, below the RTE, below the break even rather, those are people who didn't qualify for the RTE. And it wouldn't be rental because that's in the 30% of the orange. They're second homes, they didn't qualify, they didn't apply, et cetera.
so the people that saw their tax bills go up by 2 to 4%, if I look at this chart, because they qualified, but they're above the break even, that was about 11%, they contributed 11% to the shift?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, so the other 89 is coming from other.
exactly. That's what the top, 89 is from people who qualified and 11%, from people who didn't, and
Got it,
11% from the
Thank you.
people who did.
Yeah.
Big takeaway here is renters are paying a lot, $1 a day, not a lot, but it's still, they're paying a large share in the aggregate.
Right, so back just on that point, so the orange slice there, which is percentage, is actually kind of an overstatement of the actual dollar impact.
It's,
No,
It's the total dollars,
It's the
it's
dollars.
the
subject,
total
Total.
housing segment.
It's not per
Yeah.
unit,
It's not so,
it's not per unit.
Right.
it's not per unit, and apartment complexes are a lot lower, assessed
Yeah.
lower than a home that's rented. So kind of the question here is, it reaches one goal, which is low-income homeowners, very well, 85%. But there are deficits in terms of renters pay a lot. They're not the target of the RTE. How much of a hurt is that is kind of a question to you, for all you to think about. And then the other two segments are ones that pay as well.
I don't want to beat a dead horse. Renters pay a lot collectively, but
I know what you're saying, but
individually, it's not a
it's a
big hit.
small impact.
Yes,
Right, yeah.
got it.
And the market forces will determine whether or not when they can pass it on.
Yes.
They will pass
exactly.
it on, it's when.
Right, it's
when,
eventually.
exactly.
I mean, landlords are in it to make money. They're in it, it's for-profit business.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next slide. So we did speak to a number of towns with varying experiences regarding the RTE. Towns like Lexington and Sudbury considered adopting the RTE, but after studying it a bit, decided not to. A town such as Marlborough had the RTE, but then realized that the distribution of home values below and above the break-even point was not very big, and therefore people who were living in homes assessed above the break-even didn't quite understand why they had to pay more relative to their neighbor in a similar but slightly undervalued home, paid a little bit less. Anyway, they phased it out over a number of years, no longer rely on the RTE. On the other hand, the town of Brookline has had the RTE in place for decades without concern. So that was sort of interesting information. We also spoke to Bedford. Bedford last year adopted what we refer to out of the Mass General Laws nomenclature as 41C and a half. It's a more targeted set of tax relief available to seniors without the asset restriction that we have on our senior means tested exemption here in
What's the
Concord.
income limit on that? Do you know
Sorry?
do you know what the income limit is on that 41C and a half?
They follow the circuit breaker income limits.
Okay, thank you.
So the Commonwealth has already defined who is in need of tax relief.
Got it.
According to the circuit breaker rules, 41C and a half uses
Thank you.
those same rules. We also spoke to the town of Harwich on the Cape. Harwich is one of a very limited number of communities that have adopted an affordable rental program. Section 5, capital O, out of the Mass General Laws, allows towns to offer property tax relief to landlords who rent at affordable rates to eligible tenants. And Harwich is a town that has implemented this program to try and fight against the Airbnbization of their housing stock, to provide affordable rental properties, especially to folks who work in town. And so we heard about their experience. We also recently spoke to the deputy town manager and finance director of the town of Eastham out on the Cape. Eastham is an interesting town. They had special legislation passed a year or two ago that allows them to fund out of free cash. And I think also
It is
out of
appropriation, but you can't
appropriations.
raise taxes. You can't raise taxes to fund that, to make a contribution.
What they're funding is a special fund
Yeah.
that provides targeted tax relief to those under the age of 60, because they looked at the range of other options, and you'll see a slide on this in a moment, where the population in need above the age of 65 is fairly well served, but they felt that year-round residents of Eastham under the age of 60 also needed tax relief, and so that was an interesting option. Next slide. So a number of things came out of this work. You know, we did this survey that not only asked income and assessment information, but sentiment about how the folks, how our residents, fellow residents are feeling about the town, and we heard a lot of things. We heard about a lot of confusion about what the RTE is, about what its effect is. We heard from renters who thought it made their rent go down, which is wrong. We heard people who didn't understand that even if they live in a higher valued home, they would still get the exemption if they applied. So a lot of confusion. We also heard a lot of discontent about town spending, people who felt that spending was out of control in the town. And we drew from this that really the RTE has created a new theme for divisiveness in the town. There's a lot more dissatisfaction that has been engendered by the RTE. Anything else I wanted to mention? And then the political dimension of the fact that we have 26% of our housing units that are rental properties, and yet very few renters responded to our survey. And mostly, we don't realize we have a significant rental population in town. We don't hear from renters in town. They don't necessarily feel as plugged in to the community. We thought that was an important political observation. Next slide. So this chart basically lays out the different potential target beneficiaries: low-income residents under the age of 65, over the age of 65, other specialized beneficiaries, and then renters. And then we looked at what are the different tax relief options that currently exist in the state, though not necessarily in Concord. We have the RTE, which is the only tax relief option that provides relief to qualifying residents regardless of age and regardless of asset assets or savings. We do have the Hugh Cargill Trust's Property Tax Relief Fund. That currently provides $450, I think it is, $425 per quarter to folks in need. There is no age restriction at the moment, and I don't know about asset restrictions. Those cases, those applications are reviewed on a case-by-case basis. We do have a senior means tested exemption in Concord, and that benefits folks over the age of 65. But as we spoke to you in the fall, we indicated that the asset limit for the what I call the SMTE, is actually very low. It started at $250,000, was raised shortly thereafter to $275,000, and there it has sat for a number of years. Whereas other towns, and we give you examples in the report, other towns are in that ballpark. Carlisle has an asset limit, also has a senior means tested exemption with an asset limit of $500,000, and in Brookline, I believe it's $750,000. So again, something to think about. But there are two other options that we've now mentioned briefly that Concord has not adopted: the 41C.5, which follows the circuit breaker income limits, has no asset limit, and then 5.0, which potentially could help renters. And then, of course, there are statutory exemptions in the Mass General laws that provide various forms of tax relief for veterans, the blind, et cetera.
So the two check marks under low income over 65 with RTE and 41C.5, it's, in comparison, in looking at the data, can municipality like ours offer similar quantitative tax relief to seniors under those two check marks, or is it
So
skewed?
currently, the RTE offers an exemption of 10% to eligible properties.
Right.
Right? The SMTE offers exemptions up to 50%. So two different programs, two different levels of benefit.
Right.
One with a much more restrictive asset limit that could be adjusted by the select board. The RTE does not have an asset limit.
And the 41C.5?
41C.5 also does not have an asset limit. 41C.5 starts at 5% by law, and then if the town wants to raise that, for example, replacing the RTE with 41C.5, we could raise it to 10%, but it allows you to go as high as 20
But you have the circuit breaker limit on income.
on incomes,
Yeah.
that's right. So it's a more targeted form of relief,
Yeah.
whereas RTE is much more broadly applicable.
Yep.
And Lynn, we have 41C
Yes,
currently in place,
yes.
which is.
That's
which
the
is-
senior means
It's a
tested?
dollar
No,
amount.
it's like 41C.5 would replace our 41C program, but it's also low income and not leveraged very often. Not many people are benefiting from that today.
So in
It's
the
also
full
in the
report, you'll see the number of people who have taken advantage of the different tax relief options as recently as we could get the
Yeah.
data.
Yep.
Isn't there's also an option to not pay your property taxes, right?
We have
Tax.
hardship programs where you can defer.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to pay them.
But
eventually.
no one deferred. We talked to the assessor, and no one does it, because there's a,
That results in a lien.
right, it does.
I'm sorry, what?
That results in a lien on the property.
What's the interest rate they charge?
No, I don't think it has to be a lien.
4%.
It's a lien.
It's a lien.
Oh, it becomes one.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But I'm saying, yeah.
And it's
You can
4%.
defer, you can't avoid
Correct.
paying it.
But I'm saying if you can't afford to pay your taxes, you
There are
can
financial
defer
hardship programs.
paying your taxes
Yes.
and not pay them until the house is sold,
Correct.
at which point the
At a
taxes you
4%,
owe
At a
would then-
4% per
Correct.
year increase.
Correct,
Yeah, if you're a homeowner.
Right,
correct.
It doesn't help,
Still
still,
have a mortgage.
yeah.
Your lender isn't going to let you do it.
still
Well,
doesn't,
there's that too, yeah.
And it still doesn't help renters at all.
Correct.
So to state the obvious, all those check marks, there's a tax shift anyway. Somebody pays, you know, it has to be,
It has to be covered
it has to be
somewhere.
covered somewhere.
And we have it in the report. Some of these things are funded out of the town's overlay account.
Right.
Some of them are funded by shifts in the levy, shifts in responsibility for the levy. So In sum, you, on the select board, will have to weigh the efficiency, or rather, the effectiveness of the RTE in helping low-income homeowners, 85% of whom benefit from the RTE, as well as seniors, 63% of seniors currently benefit. Broadly, when we looked across low-income residents, meaning homeowners and renters, 63% receive a tax reduction, 63% who are homeowners, low-income homeowners, while the other 37% pay more. You have to weigh those figures versus what we're calling the inefficiency of about 50% of those receiving the tax reduction not being low-income. Next slide, please. And thus, the task force came together and developed consensus on a set of recommendations to you, 5 different actions that we think would provide more targeted tax relief to the town. The first is perhaps the most complex, according to the law. We recommend that you put in motion a process to begin the adoption of 41C.5, which would provide better targeted tax relief to seniors. The hitch is that the law requires not only town meeting, but also townwide elections to approve that. I say the hitch, but on the other hand, part of the political divisiveness around the RTE is that we didn't have a vote. People didn't express themselves. So, this is a way of ensuring that you have the backing of the town. That would provide relief to over 700 seniors, according to our calculations, who would meet the circuit breaker criteria. So that would be the first step. Second, to retain the senior means tested exemption, but to update the asset limit. We're recommending to go to match what Carlisle offers, which is $500,000, and to revise it every year, to look at it on a regular basis.
And what's the mechanism for that?
I'm sorry?
What is the mechanism for that?
You can decide.
Is the
that.
select board only, or?
I think it's the assessor's
It's actually
office.
the assessor, I think. And
Okay.
is that the income level as well,
Yeah.
to make sure it inflates with inflation? Yeah, right.
They're the ones who certainly grant the applications.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that income level is not a circuit breaker. The senior
The
means.
senior means
Yeah.
tested.
It's asset.
But the asset limit,
Yeah, but I
They
know.
set the
We're- For
asset
the
limit.
income, is that, the income limit for the senior means tested, is that also?
I don't remember.
Circuit
It's,
breaker?
I don't think,
yeah, okay. It's,
I have it.
Sorry,
It's in the report.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
sorry.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I don't think.
I was
it's a
wondering if-
breaker.
It's
I was wondering if do we
evaluated
have the ability to-
subjectively according to hardship, according to
Yeah.
need.
Mhm.
So the assessors set it, and so they can reset it.
Correct.
Got it, okay.
Third step is to design a pilot program, a la what Harwich has done, to implement a Section 5.0 program. We were not as successful in canvassing landlords in town, so I'm afraid we can't tell you how popular this would be. But if we tried it on a pilot basis, where we engaged with property owners in town, particularly not of the large apartment complexes, but particularly private rentals, ADUs. We think there may be interest. I think Harwich started with a limit of 10 grants under this program. It requires the assessor's office to validate people's incomes, to make sure that the tenant is income eligible, meeting some percentage of the area median income, as you would define, and then also the level of the rent would have to be verified.
Of the 26% rental units, do you know what percentage of those are at affordable rates right now?
About a quarter,
A quarter of,
422.
That's all of them.
So those are already taken care of
Right.
without this program.
Right.
The question is, what the other 1,400, what could we do across the other 1,400 units? And it would-
landlords would have to agree to adjust the
Right, of
raise.
course,
The raise.
Of course, it would require
Wow.
And the
outreach.
assumption is the discount on the tax is what.
So they would get a tax break
Right.
if they are renting at affordable rates
It's
to eligible tenants.
Administratively burdensome.
Yes, it certainly adds to the workload.
Okay.
Though speaking with the assessor in Harwich, she indicated that it wasn't overly burdensome for their office because they kept the number small.
Yeah.
Okay.
The fourth suggestion we have for you is to think about doing something a la what Easton is doing and speak to the Hugh Cargill Trust folks about focusing their tax relief on those under the age of 65. Because without the RTE, if you should decide to phase that out, without the RTE, folks under the age of 65 really don't have relief anywhere else. So for those who are meeting, or who are facing financial stress, this would be an option that would be more targeted to them. And then lastly, just educate, educate, educate. There's a lot of information gaps in the town about the sort of tax relief options that exist currently. This would be part of what you need to do in order to get 41C and a half into the minds of the voters, but it is needed more broadly. We had a really interesting conversation early on with the Council on Aging. They do their part for seniors who are in financial stress, who are looking for relief. They do a lot of counseling. I believe our assessor's office and our social worker in town also offer that. But these are kind of treated on individual case-by-case basis. Maybe it's time for podcasts in the town. Maybe it's time for another League of Women Voters presentation, or an article in the Bridge, or a flyer that gets mailed home in tax bills, making the relief options more obvious for people. So those were the recommendations. I would say that option one, as I said at the beginning, does require a town meeting vote and vote at a townwide election. We would have to do it again if we want to raise the exemption from 5% to something else. But the other four recommendations are all within the purview of the town. Final slide, please. Where we had a difference of opinion across the task force was whether to recommend a 2 to 3 year phase out of the RTE and urge you to adopt those 5 recommendations, or whether to recommend to you a 2 to 3 year phase out of the RTE contingent on the adoption of those recommendations. And you'll see that our vote was split 4 to 3. So the draft report is, of course, before you. A copy has been shared with the assessor's office and also with the finance office, I believe.
Jennifer's right behind you. Yes, she was reviewing it herself.
And is posted on the task force's webpage. I'm going to check tomorrow to make sure that the
It
new
is.
webpage is there.
It's there, and the comment about providing feedback.
So we're offering a 2-week period to receive comments from the public, after which time we will then finalize the report and submit it to you.
It's important that, seems like your overall recommendation is to phase out the RT because there are options. It's just sequencing here where there's,
So some of us say those options should be in place first.
yeah,
Right.
no, I know that, but there are options, so a phase out, either, there's a split vote, I see that, but.
Right.
I mean, I'll speak for myself, and others from the task force who are here can weigh in. I think the inefficiency of the program, the fact that it benefits quite a few homeowners whose incomes suggest they aren't as in need of tax relief, is one overwhelming factor. The fact that there's a 26% of housing units who are also bearing a slightly increased rental fee as a result of this was another factor that persuaded some. So, yeah.
But the downside is it leaves younger people under 65 a little bit without a lot of
any
options.
relief options. It also takes, for people living in homes worth $1 million or less, assessed at $1 million or less, they're receiving anywhere from $1,200 to $1,600 a year in tax relief. To take that away now, especially if you're a senior in a modest home on a fixed income, we heard plenty of stories where that benefit is meaningful to those
Yeah,
households.
Definitely, yeah.
I would say that when you looked at the chart that said the 3 bars about house assessments, and that less than $1 million, less than $1 million is when the benefit is double digit in terms of a tax reduction. And that's the people that would see an increase in their tax bill because they're homeowners and not renters right away. And so that's one of the concerns. And 50% of those people, at least a lot of those people, less than $1 million, are very low income. They're less than $100,000.
Ellen, can you just verify the numbers for me, please? I think 86% of homeowners qualify for the RTE, right?
68%.
68% qualify.
Yes.
Where did I get the 86?
85% is the number of low-income homeowners that got a tax reduction from the RTE.
Got it, okay.
Okay.
you.
That's
Thank you.
it hits the target. That's the statement of it hits the target.
Right.
The question is, what's the impact of the inefficiency of only half of those tax reductions going to people with low income?
But I think importantly, from that last slide, I mean, everybody on the committee is saying we should phase out the RTE.
Everyone's in the committee saying you should.
No, I'm not saying
I'm going
that.
to I'm going to say my
No,
internal opinion.
I'm not
It's
saying
that
that.
they're.
I didn't say you're saying that.
I'm not saying,
I'm asking,
this committee.
there's 7 people on the, I'm not saying this committee.
Okay.
Oh, no, Mary, I would never speak for you, I know that.
No, Cameron.
There's some things I've learned. I learned slowly, but I would not speak for you. No, but what I'm saying is, based on that last slide, everybody's saying, yes, we should phase it out. It's a matter of how we phase it out.
We're saying
That's what
that
they
there are
said.
better options that are more
correct.
targeted than the RTE,
Correct.
but don't phase, and some of us say don't phase the RTE out until you have those
Correct.
options in place.
Yes.
Okay.
It is a matter of how you, do you phase it out immediately? Do you phase it out after other options are in place?
So like other options need to go in place. That's,
Plain speaking, there are other options
yeah,
that
that's
we
the
need to
point.
explore.
Right.
We need to really look at them.
targeted.
We need to look at
More
them.
targeted.
we need to look at and
There-
get them past that town
Well,
meeting.
to see the,
That's,
If-
yeah.
if
that's
we
the-
go-
the equivalency, I mean,
Well-
the benefit from the RTE right now for the typical person benefiting, the dollar amount, can that person get it with those other,
That's the question. Yeah.
I don't know. I
Well,
mean,
we did
that's
see,
important.
we did do analysis and say a lot of the people that benefited from the RTE that would meet the senior means test would benefit from the 41C and a half.
Right.
So there's lots.
About 700.
There's lots of
700
options for the over
There's so many options.
65, but the under 65, it's
65.
very limited.
that's
The Hugh Cargill Trust is, remember, it's all from donations.
You can also-
Very
yeah.
few. But the legislation that came out of Eastham is very intriguing because actually it does give you a little more flexibility. And you
It's
can
not
define
just
your own,
donations.
and you can, what Eastham did was define all of their own criteria for the people who were eligible. They did it for 60 and under, but they even regretted saying 60. They would like to just define all the criteria. Because I think they would have liked to done 65 and under, not 60 and under. So I think there's lots of
They
things
also
that we have to look
recently
at.
adopted the RTE.
Right, at 3%, right?
Oh, they
Right,
did?
They did.
Oh, my goodness.
So what is the largest uncertainty in your recommendations right now? And what- I mean,
Adoption of the 41C and a half, I think. It's getting that, I mean, I guess it's frankly, it's education, because the RTE went in without any public input, and I think that's a lot of the angst that we heard in the survey. And so getting 41C and a half passed by a good education campaign, begin town meeting now, and then it goes to the ballot.
And that's the uncertainty, because we can't predict that,
Exactly.
but we need
And
that to
that
happen.
ballot is just for 5%. You have to go back again to
Again,
town
yeah.
meeting if you want to raise it.
If you wanna raise
above 5%.
Couldn't you
right.
start at 10?
No.
No, you
Start at
can't.
Oh, you
We
have to
asked them
start
that
at
one,
5.
So it's a
Really?
complicated
Know that.
process. So there's a
It's a
lot of
process.
discussions
It's
for
a-
people. Is
wow.
5% enough? Is
Okay.
10%?
That's-
Anyway.
But I believe that with a well-defined message that the RTE was tried and was considered to be inefficient, we are now going to move to something that is more targeted to the over 65 population in need. I think that is a message that would resonate
work.
with people at town meeting and with voters.
Yeah,
I think
Isn't
people
the,
also really appreciate being asked and being engaged
That's
in the
true.
process. I think that's probably the most important goodwill you'd get.
but there is a real challenge in that, on the effectiveness
Right.
measurement, the 85% of low-income homeowners are today receiving a tax reduction from this program.
Right.
A chunk
That's
of
the one.
whom would
Yeah.
benefit under 41.
Would also benefit there, but, so,
In the report.
without, and I assume that's why there was a strong sentiment that says it either must or definitely should be replaced by something that's targeted to make sure that we don't lose that benefit along the way of trying to, okay.
There's also a bit of an uncertainty, and I'll call it the equivalency, like, if I'm person X and I'm getting a
Oh,
$1,500
right, exactly.
tax relief on RT, do I get the same relief under 41C and a half, or am I only getting $950? Or, I mean, it sounds like a detail, but I think it's
Well,
It's important.
You're not getting the same, because it's 5%.
Unless you raise it to 10%.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
over time, I mean, yes, it's a process.
And
That's an important question,
I
though.
wanted to ask something, the 61% of homes that were in this 1 million to 2.4 area, of which 30% of those are either low income or very low
yeah.
income. But that's also that's equivalent to this 34% pie slice on the next page that says, where they're paying, that group is paying $1 million of the RTE? Is that, so non-RTE qualified
Anybody
rental homes
qualifying whose
below the
home-
break even?
Whose home is below the break even is
This
not.
is
Oh,
just
they're not in
assessment.
that group, okay.
Yeah, this
All
is
right.
just assessment.
So those are home owning situations which, for whatever reason, just like in the Cape and the Islands, non-resident, somebody that owns multiple homes and is choosing to use their primary residence someplace else, that kind of situation. Okay. All right, so.
I mean, I will say there's a minimal number of second home ownership in Concord,
Yeah,
as far as we're
We
aware.
tried to estimate it, but it was just kind of a shot in the dark. It was really hard to figure that one
Yeah.
out.
But it's nothing like Nantucket or Truro.
no, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we don't clear out, we do clear out in the summer, but,
Can you introduce the other members of your task force
yes,
to me,
Thank
please?
you.
Because I don't know.
Girl White, Kathy O'Neill, Rich Healy.
Does Shannon, is she online?
Is Shannon online? Is John online? Don't
Well-
think I saw them sign in, but anyway.
Thank you. Hi.
this has been a super important piece of work you guys have done. Thank you.
And it's an amazing amount of work. This
Yeah.
group has been meeting every 2 weeks since a year ago, pretty much. So
Well, and-
it's a
and the
lot of work and an amazing group of people. So at least 4 of you have never been on a town committee before. Really diverse opinions, great skills. Everyone brought everything to the table. It was a great mix of
Yeah, we had
great
an
committee,
absolutely
great
amazing
work.
team, and we worked really well together. We might have disagreed
Yeah.
about stuff, but we worked well together, so I'm
We
proud of
did
that.
disagree. It's
a
I'm
lot
proud
of-
that.
a lot
As I mentioned
of
before,
work, so thank
the report, that's why it looks clear. It's really
It's-
well-written,
Yeah, I mean,
readable
it's a big
report.
report, but you should read it. Every
It's a
chapter.
page turner.
It
It's really
is.
a
It's
page
very, page turner.
In
It's
part,
also-
we wanted to leave instructions for the next group that wants
Yeah.
to do a townwide survey.
Yeah, that was
We
important.
left information in the appendix as to how to go about it, because I think it took us,
It took us a while to figure that one out. We sort of also kind of did all the silly math, pulled that in the appendix, so it was not quite so dense as it would have been otherwise. There's a great section on the real estate market that's
Yes.
amazing,
Yeah,
just
yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
That was
Thanks,
great.
So you're taking comments for
Yeah.
2 more weeks, is that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
so if
And
we
then
have
the
some
final-
follow-ups,
Please.
some other data.
And if you've got
we
any
can-
data that you want, because it's some of the questions you've asked, we could try to figure out math-wise if you want. if
That'd be
it's
great.
important.
And I kind of have an additional ask of you folks, because I think you've been right in the
Knew it was
middle of a really important conversation. We're going to have a townwide conversation about what sort of housing we should be focused on at MCI. We're going to be having a townwide conversation about what kind of housing should be in the housing production plan for targets. And I can't help looking at this information but see that there's probably a thread through there that, you've begun to break down the housing and the ownership and the dynamics of those things in a way that hasn't been done before. And I really hope that you guys will help engage that conversation as we try to decide what's the best, what's the missing housing, what does this housing market need? What does this community need in terms of housing? And then, and particularly since you also now have developed a good roadmap for what programs are focused, might also be applied as that housing comes in. I hope you'll consider contributing to those discussions.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I strongly believe that the RTE can only go so far in promoting economic diversity in
Right.
town.
Yeah.
And the housing piece, the affordable housing
Yes.
piece,
Yeah.
is a really important dimension of that.
Yeah.
We had many discussions on the committee about the importance of smaller, denser housing,
Yeah.
townhouses, condos, so that us old folks, when we want to downsize, have places to go, and our kids, when they want to move into town, have something they can afford.
Yeah.
One thing we don't know is like, what is the average income of an employee in town? I mean, that's the workforce housing, and what is
Yep.
an affordable rate, 30% of your income
Yeah.
on, housing costs. So those sorts of things, probably are a conversation between the housing folks and
Yeah.
what we
Yes,
figured out.
exactly.
Right.
And you probably know this off the top of your head, but with, over 450 units of rental housing looking like it's coming online in the next couple of years, that takes that 26% number to,
100 more.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
A lot.
30, almost 30%.
That's another issue for you as a select board to be
Yeah.
thinking about, right? How to better engage renters,
Yeah.
not the landlords who own the properties, but renters in the business of the town.
Because we went out and solicited
You
as many
tried.
people as we could, and we got not very, very little. I think it's renters think, well, it doesn't impact me. They might know that about their
They're
fee.
also the most likely to move out of town.
Most likely to move out of
That's right, I
town.
read that.
And,
Yep.
it's also, probably don't think town meeting has a lot to do with them. So that's
Yeah.
a conversation.
Yeah, I guess it would take 1820 to 2200 or something like
And
that, which is
7,600, 20.
almost a 25% increase.
Right.
Yep,
Great.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. It's
Thank
really
you.
fantastic amount of
Really.
work. Appreciate it so much.
Fantastic work. Really.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, we have couple more discussions to have this evening. 3 town meeting items that I wanted to touch on briefly. We heard at the last meeting that, and that we distributed in the packet a memo from the mover of the Article 31 regarding the Revolutionary War Monument, and the memos included from Concord 250 Corporation that they do not plan to move that article. However, there is an ask in that memo, and it brought to mind the concerns that progress doesn't appear to be being made on the Revolutionary War Monument in response to the 250. And so they have a couple of specific parameters, but, what jumped out at me was that, a timely process and a source of funding that would produce a monument in a reasonable period of time seemed like something that might require some focus by the select board.
I think so.
And I don't know whether anybody has any additional information they want to provide about what has happened so far, but I'm inclined to suggest that the select board should maybe put a focal point on this particular effort so that, we got close to having a discussion about it at a town meeting, which I don't think any of us were really that well prepared for. And it does seem like, a year on, it's probably time to think a little bit more focused way about how this is going to come to conclusion.
What's the status of the 250th Executive Committee?
Yeah, I was going to ask the
Yeah,
exact
so-
same question.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I've had some discussions with the 250 committee
Yeah,
about this
Yeah.
particular issue. They don't feel like they're in a position to take the lead on it, right? So it's sort of, I mean, again, the viewpoint from those discussions has been, look, we have a little bit of money left over. We were looking at how we sort of finish off and maybe do some things like, for instance, around the 4th of July this year, some things like that. But taking on sort of a, hey, what should we do from a memorial just has not felt like something that they are like, we're prepared to do that. So, yeah, so it hasn't really gone anywhere from that standpoint. And then, there's always a little bit of the complexity of, right? So that was the 250 committee. This is a separate corporation.
250th corporation, yeah.
Yeah, that is
250th corporation.
not part of the 250 committee.
understand
So,
that,
yeah,
yep.
no, so I'm just
Yep.
saying for everyone that's listening, like, it's how do you tackle it? Like, want to get something done.
but it could
How
also-
do we do it? How do we start?
But CPC could be a source of funding too, right? If there was another group that started to look. Because I don't know if we were saying the 250th Corp was going to fund it. But maybe this is a topic for a future agenda.
My sense, it's a general sense that there is consensus around this being a good idea in town. There's not consensus around exactly how to do it,
Right.
but I haven't heard people say, "Yeah, this is not a good idea." So the question
Which
is,
is not a good idea, Paul.
some sort of revolutionary monument in Monument Square. I haven't heard a lot of, it's probably out there, but I've heard even from the groups that don't have an agreement on what to do, I think there's agreement that something should be done. I mean, that's the sense.
My observation is that we haven't particularly empowered anybody to get the job done. or
That's exactly
That's right.
Really asked anybody to get the
That's right.
job done. And so there is some, there is a desire on the part of some to do it. It may not be on the radar of many others. But I think that if it's going to get done, it's probably going to need some specific leadership with that mission to get it done.
Let me say something. I know that that's what Henry Dane wants to do, get something done, but I do know that there's another sentiment in town that we should maybe have a cooling off period, because there's passion around what should be done with that last remaining parcel of land, whether it should be dedicated to a war memorial or whether it should be a place for other voices to be heard. So, once we've got to be in a situation where people can talk to each other about that with compromise in their mind. And I think what I've heard people say is a cooling off period would do something for that. That's what I'm hearing.
So my point in raising it here was to recognize that it is a piece of unfinished business.
Yep.
It doesn't appear that it's going to come before town meeting next week, so
Right.
I don't think we need to act today, but I just want to put it out there that I think that it probably does need some attention.
Well, remember, the reason, I think one of the reasons I can't speak that it's not being brought is because people recognize that it was going to be contentious.
Yes.
And that's where I'm going with the, a cooling off period. Getting people to have conversations with each other, I think is valuable, and that's where we should be headed, but maybe.
But Mary, is the contention about it being the 250th Corp. that was funding it?
That was one of the
That
points.
was one of them,
That's
right?
one of
And
the
the other
points.
is sort of what is it that we're talking about
Exactly.
anyways, right?
Well,
Right, so it's.
And where is
yeah.
it?
Where is
Where is
it?
it, yeah.
I mean, what is it about Concord that we want to memorialize?
Right.
Is
That's
it
fair.
the Revolutionary War, or is it and something else, and where and how?
Yeah.
What's the design? So I don't even think we know. I think earlier we jumped to a design, and that got a lot of backlash. So now it's, well, what exactly are we trying to memorialize? And I think, so we're way back in the
Should step
process.
Right.
Yeah, this deserves a lot of
So
discussion.
getting it done
Right.
isn't.
My sense is,
think that's-
my sense is on this issue that people are talking at each other rather than having a dialogue about it. And
Yes.
whether we need a cooling off period or just a different type of discussion.
Right.
Or a facilitator.
Or facilitator.
A facilitator.
But it even goes, I mean, you could broaden it to, the stuff we talk about with the signs and the, I mean, there were other things that
True,
were,
yeah.
signs taken down for maintenance and what's our approach to, historic, I mean, I know this is a little different, but it's in the same
But it's still
genre of
historic.
what do people want to put up in
Memorialize and
town?
how.
What do they want to memorialize? Where do they want them to be?
Yep.
What should they represent? That's all I'm just saying, is there's a bunch of that, because every time I get into the conversations, that stuff, I'm just
All
going to say,
comes
all
in,
starts
yeah.
to swirl around.
So-
It does all start to, people kind of
It's all
throw it into the mix.
It's all unfinished business.
I want to keep us moving, but, and I, for one,
commit
haven't
ourselves,
had a chance to review the new draft historic preservation plan, but I'm going to be reading that document and asking myself the question of how does it help us answer these kinds of questions? And I would encourage others to do the same and maybe circle back to have a community conversation about that.
It's a
If
good
you're
next
saying
step.
there's some tough
Okay,
things we got to
let's-
take, yes, we do.
Yes.
I'm going to keep us moving.
Yep.
Okay,
That's
go
fine.
ahead.
Article 35. So Gail Hires here. Hi, Gail. Article 35 is on the town meeting warrant. It's the wireless communications bylaw. And we understand that Gail and is going to propose to replace the, I'm going to let you explain it, but she's going to have a substitute motion, which is going to be presented at town meeting.
As an amendment? Is this an amendment, or is this the article? This is the
Or is it a
motion.
replacement?
Proposed,
It would be proposed as an amendment, I believe,
It's an amendment.
which would replace
God,
some
like a
some of these two.
So is this the motion, or is this an amendment?
This looks like a
So
table.
the motion will be made by the planning board.
Okay, and this is.
Take-
they are
Planning board?
supporting Article 35.
The existing one, right?
Yes.
Point of order.
Yes.
Are we going to discuss what we feel about the planning board's article?
No, we're going to hear from Gail
Have we talked about this yet?
what she is planning to propose as an alternative to what the planning board is going to do. And we're just listening and getting an opportunity to hear it so that the first time we hear it is not at town meeting.
Remind me, did we already take a position?
Yes, we did.
We did.
We took a
Thank you.
we took a position in favor of the
good. I'm
planning
good. Let's
board's
go.
motion.
We're in favor.
Okay,
This is just informational.
because this is going to be before the meeting. And we're also
Okay,
going to
good.
meet with the planning board because they'll also have had an opportunity to hear about this.
Okay, good.
And then right before Tuesday, it's probably going to come up on Tuesday night. So we'll have an opportunity to decide whether we're going to take a position on this.
Okay.
Okay,
So this is information intake, right?
it is.
Okay, it's information intake.
Thank you, Gail.
Yes, it's procedurally quite
Taking-
complicated. So
Okay.
may I share? I have a PowerPoint, 7 slides,
Sure.
9.
Let me
with-
just find your name.
And then Megan, we got something this afternoon which I think was Gail's amendment, but I'm not sure.
Right.
Just
So
want
I
to make sure that
don't
was it,
have
right?
the exact wording of my replacement or substitute yet. The town moderator and town council have reviewed it in draft
Okay.
format, and it's almost ready. I'm just putting
Okay.
final
Okay.
Okay.
touches on it. So the table that I handed out,
Is this, you want to walk us through the summary here?
I'm going to get there.
Okay.
If that's okay. What I have is, all right, I'm not used to doing. Slideshow.
Looks like we're seeing a section of the screen.
Can anyone
it
else,
looks like it.
anyone see this? I don't know why.
It looks like only a piece.
Am I sharing? It says I'm sharing.
This is what you're sharing.
That's what you're
right
sharing.
here.
Oh, okay.
We should-
All right, so,
We probably want to share our window.
all right, I'm going to stop. I haven't done.
This is Teams.
On this particular computer recently. Select window or screen. and
Yeah,
then,
probably select the window
select window.
and then look for your
Okay,
presentation.
okay.
I think explaining what you have in mind
Yeah, that would
would be very
Yeah,
helpful.
Just talk to us. How about this?
Yeah, so basically, my browser is preventing me from sharing my screen. I wonder, okay, well, I was going to preview what I was going to do at town meeting, but I can just walk you through it while I
think we-
PowerPoint myself. This would replace the planning board's Article 35. And the reason, I'm just trying to find the piece. It says, why change zoning? Town meeting gets to decide if we change.
Can't see that.
Yeah,
Can't really
I mean,
see that, so yeah.
If you could just hit the highlights, because we don't need all the wording, but
Walk us
Yeah.
through
what
this,
what
would
are
be great.
what are we trying to
Right, well,
accomplish?
we need some background as to why we are where we are. Why change zoning? Basically, the select board asked the planning board to look at the zoning and come up with a possible alternative. That's what they did. And why not Article 35? And my answer is, it gives up way too many rights. And in general, local autonomy is under attack by the federal government, and we need to protect our rights as a town and as citizens. My initial reaction to Article 35 was simply to advocate for a no vote because it's a terrible fit for Concord. A town known worldwide for its unique aesthetic and historic character should not suddenly pull the plug on preferential siting and allow wireless facility antennas on any structurally sound building, including residentially zoned buildings. Upon a close review of the current bylaw, Town Council's explanation for the changes and justifications voiced by the Planning Board, I realized that information gaps and misconceptions might lead voters to adopt something they don't understand with possible tragic consequences. And I also researched the issuance of permits and learned that since about 2003, about at least a dozen applications were filed with the ZBA, and only one of those didn't proceed to a permit. That's because the historic folks denied a certificate of appropriateness. Around the same time, I was inspired by the Haywood Meadow Stewardship Committee's talk, where I learned about the long, hard fight by residents, including some attorneys, to preserve a special place that provides habitat, vistas, and history so important to our town. One misconception is that our bylaw is illegal. Actually, let me just back up. I am an attorney. I know each of us is a legislator at town meeting, but I also practice law. For the last 20-plus years, my focus has been environmental permitting, and I think that makes me qualified to draft a wireless communication bylaw that involves permits, and a law that is also sensitive to legal concerns as well as local objectives. So Town Council has stated, and I agree, that the current bylaw imposes permissible but somewhat stringent requirements, and that certain requirements may be unenforceable in particular circumstances and federally preempted, and likely unenforceable if challenged. As I mentioned earlier, we haven't had a bylaw challenge for nearly 20 years. Sorry, not a bylaw, a wireless permit under the wireless bylaw has not been challenged for over 20 years. These qualities that I read from the Town Council statement are not reasons to gut the bylaw, which is flexible enough to allow relief or waivers. Two more misconceptions are that the law on wireless siting is settled and that the science on wireless safety is settled. FCC rules and policies are increasingly being challenged in court. Courts, not the FCC, and certainly not the town of Concord, has the last word on whether our bylaw violates federal law. Massachusetts' highest court may soon decide a case involving conflicts between the Telecommunications Act, state public health law, and our constitutional rights. I can talk more about that if anyone's interested. But it involves a long legal battle by residents of Pittsfield who suffered microwave sickness after Verizon erected a tower near their homes. So after speaking with other concerned residents, I drafted a replacement. I have some slides that I'll show at town meeting that show how Article 35 would change based on how the current bylaw would change based on Article 35. Basically, half of the bylaw would be gutted or deleted. Much of the remaining language in Article 35, as well as my replacement, is the same as our current zoning, but rearranged. And my substitute would also add back in some of the current language. So procedurally, I think what I'm offering is a replacement to Article 35 via a handout that I will have at town meeting. It's 7 pages. This is it. I could pass it around. Well, actually, I probably shouldn't pass it around. It's a draft. But if you're interested, I could pass it around. Would that be helpful to just take a look at what people are going to get at town meeting? Just
I shared a version.
You should share it already.
Megan sent that earlier.
Right. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, so the biggest changes are, in terms of deletion from the existing bylaw, would be the deletion of the wireless overlay district and the removal of the purpose intent, removal of definitions for adequate coverage and capacity, deletion of procedures for demonstrating need.
So you would keep the existing overlay district?
Yes, the proposal for Article 35 is to delete the wireless overlay district. So there will be no district, no preferred siting.
But your amendment is to
keep it as is.
Keep it as is.
Exactly the way it is.
And that's the biggest point, and there's a lot of
Yeah, I think
details
that's
within
probably, I mean, most things flow from that, but
Yeah.
yes, that's
Okay,
the,
good.
that would be one of the biggest differences between Article 35 and my replacement. And so my replacement bylaw would keep the district, but change its purpose from being a place for preferential siting and having to justify whether you're in or out of it, to having as-of-right permits for new facilities only in the district. So an as-of-right permit is basically a permit that cannot be denied. And right now, Article 35 proposes to have as-of-right permits on buildings And these could be in residential zones, they could be on a school, they could be on your neighbor's barn. There's no siting preference for antennas on buildings in Article 35, but in the replacement, antennas on buildings could get this preferential or this easier permitting path only if they're located in the district. Also, the difference with my replacement would be Article 35, and now I could hand it out all my pictures. Actually, I have let me just take a look at the chart. One difference is the last line of the alternatives comparison table, I forget what I called it, requirements, the table that you have in front of you.
It's not titled.
Yeah. So it's, the last line is residential school daycare setbacks, which are now 1,000 feet. Article 35 has no setbacks from any residence or school or daycare. And my replacement would omit those setbacks only in the wireless district. So if a site is in the wireless district, you don't need to meet the 1,000 feet from a home. You need to be like as far away as possible, but within the district. So that's one of the really big differences.
So, Gil,
Yeah, so I think those are the kind of the really big
Yeah.
things.
We can take a look.
I'm open to some questions, and yeah, procedurally, I just would be replacing it with,
so let me ask you one sort of basic question. So compared to simply voting no and retaining the current bylaw, would you characterize your substitute Article 35 as being less restrictive than the current bylaw, but not as wide open as Article 35 is proposed? Is that?
absolutely.
Okay, so
Absolutely. 'Cause
you're-
I thought there was a need for some middle ground, because the Article 35 is much too extreme.
Okay, that's.
But can you
that's
also add to it, when I read it briefly, there's a lot of monitoring that you've added,
Yeah.
right?
So-
That's new.
So
That's new,
it's not
right?
really new. What's new is the detail about the monitoring. Our current bylaw has monitoring in it.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know if it's being implemented.
It
So
looks
it-
more expansive, yeah.
It's just more detail, because the current bylaw, like I said, has a monitoring requirement. I don't know if it's being followed. So I researched other towns, I talked to some experts in telecom law when I drafted the monitoring requirement. It may change from the one that you saw, but it's basically the same, and it's providing detail. So just to know, our current bylaw does have a monitoring requirement, and this is not really any different, except that I think it asks the town to do the monitoring with an independent consultant, and the applicant would pay, or the town could choose to have the wireless facility pay for the monitoring, and that's fairly common in the
Yeah.
Got it. Great.
realm.
That is helpful. So I guess in terms of presenting, I think this chart is quite useful. I think what I might do is try to carry, so the monitoring line, you just have 2 checks, but I might say that what you just told us was that the substitute Article 35 column creates a more specific monitoring regime paid for than the current bylaw, and I'm going to assume that your analysis is right, that Article 35 removes monitoring altogether is the way I would read this chart. I don't know if that's exactly accurate.
Yeah, so you're saying it would be helpful to put some more detail in the chart that
Yeah.
says, the handout or the replacement provides more detail than current, because they both have it.
Yeah, specifies how and who pays.
And who, yeah.
And I assume it's correct, and somebody will check this, but that Article 35 removes monitoring altogether, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so that, I think that would make it a lot more straightforward for somebody who's trying to understand. And, monitoring of what is that?
Yeah, the RF radiation.
The RF
from-
radiation, yeah, okay.
One
So,
little detail, in your red line, you substituted the small cell for facility. I'm
Yeah,
wondering if that's
so-
appropriate.
Because we have a
We
separate-
have a policy.
Yeah, we have a separate
small cell
policy on
policy.
Small cell.
Is it consistent? I just don't know if
So
that's a
there's a
proper
bit of
edit.
confusion about that. I raised that question with the town planner and the planning board at the League of Women Voters on, whatever, a few days ago, and they weren't sure.
Yeah.
So I asked them to we can get clarity by town meeting. I think that, we can have both a zoning, process for small cells and have the select board policy. Because the select board policy says that nothing in this policy can violate zoning. So anyway, I've also, that question is outstanding with some telecom law experts that know more about small cells than I do. So I think we can have both some permitting in the zoning as well as maintain the select board small cell policy.
Great. All right. Well, hopefully that gives us something to go on. Do we have further questions? I appreciate you taking the time to explain it to us.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on this with a lot of other people, so I think there may be people, I don't know if there's people here today or on the Zoom who might want to say anything. If anyone is able to raise their hand. I know we're delayed from our,
Yeah, I'm Bill Lair, and I can,
Bill, come on up to a microphone then, if you're going to, just so that people online can hear you.
Will there be a clean copy of, we got a copy of the red line version, and well, it's a little
yeah,
difficult to
so-
read. Is this something, clean copy that?
yeah, so what it's
Would be
going to look
available?
like is more, it's going to be black and white, because color copies would be thousands of dollars. So it's going to be sort of track changes, but bold underline will be the stuff that is not in Article 35, and strikeout will be the stuff that I am striking from Article 35.
Okay.
And then there will be notes and boxes, just like is done in the briefing book, that kind of explain certain, sections that, like, for example, I talked about here, purpose and intent, like that whole section was gutted. I think it's really important to have purpose and intent, and I talk about why it's important. So for someone sitting in the audience reading this, they can look at the notes and, kind of
Yeah,
understand a little bit
I
what's
don't
going
want
on.
to, I don't want to increase your copying costs, but having a red line and a clean version would help. A red line version.
Red line online.
What's that?
You can put the red line on
Yeah,
somehow.
I would encourage
Yeah.
being in contact with staff to, get whatever you're able to present, and it could be in color, posted online.
Okay,
so that,
yeah, someone suggested
so
that,
that
I didn't know
people
if that'd be
can,
possible.
looking at Article 35. I believe Mary has a
I
general
have a very
question.
general, broad question. I'm a person in the audience, and I'm thinking, does the current bylaw restrict our ability to have wireless access within Concord? That's true, right?
I think the problems are less the bylaw and more the sites that have been selected. The sites that have been pursued and discussed get hung up on property owner discussions or on neighbor discussions. I mean, I think it's important for residents to have a say in permitting, and this bylaw would make it so that you can't have any say on a facility on like your neighbor's barn or your kid's school. So I don't think the current bylaw makes citing impossible. That's my view.
So why don't we just keep the current bylaw?
That is one option. You may vote to keep the current bylaw. I'm just offering an alternative because I think it would be tragic if people said, oh, we got to do something, let's vote this Article 35 in as proposed.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, the current bylaw you think is fine, and speaking for you, but you're saying that if the town wants to change it, you have an alternative to what the planning board is putting forward.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Bill.
so, my name's Bill Lair, and I came to this whole issue relatively late and was, made aware of the fact of this alternative proposal. And, I'm an economist that works at MIT, and I've spent about 30 years working on sort of wireless stuff. And this is, we are going into a place where basically the digital future of all communities, Concord being one of them, is much more complicated than just wireless connectivity. That is certainly a really important issue. The question about, do the existing bylaws cause friction for large service providers wanting to come into the town and address those needs? The answer is yes, but of course, all regulations do that for people. The question is whether or not that kind of friction, some sort of friction like that, is actually very, very important. So I believe absolutely that this is the wrong time for Concord to cede significant authority. I don't think you can trust what's happening. You can't trust the current administration because it's completely insane. But I mean, I track a lot of what's going on with the FCC, and the FCC's positions on what should happen with respect to safety and these sorts of things is very unsettled. Monitoring RF exposure, because it's all over, is really pretty limited, and understanding what the implications are of that in terms of the raising of the aggregate level. It's not just, point sources, which is the way they regulate it, which is very high, super technical. Nobody, unless you do this, really wants to know about this stuff. So, my first thing would be, why are they trying to basically eliminate all of the things that were in the bylaw when there's no clear evidence that there's a significant problem that actually exists? We certainly want better coverage in the town. We want better services. The services we want are not just obviously phone calls. It's going to be a whole lot of other stuff. That's a very complicated thing. And the standard, the sort of the cutting edge way of thinking about that is it's all going to be small cells. What you mean by small cells is low power antennas that are deployed in many, many different ways, increasingly by end users, by towns, all the stuff with like smart towns. What the town did with, for example, with the smart meters that didn't really work because, there were a lot of political opposition to that, but that the future that the town will be involved in more of that is something that, we really have to deal with. And so I would say, if I had my preference, I would have said, nothing like Article 35. It's not a big issue. There's lots of big issues in front of the town. Rather than do what they want to do, I would absolutely support the proposed alternative, because it does try and basically restore a level of the town's ability to intervene and raise these sorts of issues. I think the hooks on like who's going to put what where and where it should be is really important. There's really very little reason why anybody should be putting up macro cells, which tend to be higher power, bigger, much bigger investments. They're limited as to who would do it, all that sort of stuff, in any sort of residential areas close to it. There may be need for another one in the town, on the certain sites. There's reasons to do it. We're certainly not going to get rid of the macro cells we have. They're part of the future of the wireless infrastructure. But thinking about the nature of the future of what that infrastructure ought to look like, it ought to be about more than just connectivity, because connectivity's part of it, but it's like how you get connected and what devices you're using and all of that, and can we make that work? I mean, frankly, if it really is just, I can't make a phone call, we never need to move beyond 2G, because 2G, which is, way back when there was little clamshell phones, if that's all people cared about, we could do that really easily. We wouldn't need any of this stuff. But that's not what we're trying to do and going forward. So as someone that's involved in the technology and all of this seems like, getting this, basically eliminating, gutting the bylaw, which is what the proposal is way too much and is giving away too much control, and it's too uncertain. It's not that I distrust the large service providers, national service providers. Most people, that's who they want to use. But, we've got a municipal utility. The fact that most people now have much, much better cell phone coverage in Concord is because there's a lot of Wi-Fi, and now the service providers allow you to basically carry your calls over Wi-Fi, which is something they resisted for years because of lots of reasons. So the notion that there's lots of technical solutions that everybody could do to address the problems and being clear about what those problems are, that's something that I think you could have a much more sophisticated debate about, and we probably should. But the notion, we don't want to be seen as like saying, oh no, we're like unfriendly to Verizon or Comcast, whoever wants to come in. It's like, no, we are, but we want to maintain some control over what you can do. Okay. When they started the original one, there was my wife was on the Zoning Board of Appeals when the operators came in and they all wanted to put up their own towers. And the town got sued because they were pushing for the unreasonable idea that they put up one tower and share it.
Yeah.
And, that's clearly what they should have done. And that is actually the architecture that people are going forward with, so.
Thank you, Bill.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to take one comment online from Tanya.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Hi.
It's actually Mark.
Yep, figured that out, Mark.
Can you? Okay, yeah, thanks very much. Mark Galis, 62 Prescott Road. So I know a little bit about electromagnetics and because of my work, and I absolutely am 100% opposed to any change that would, such as Article 35, that would remove comprehensive monitoring, and I'm very much in favor of actually increasing, and as Gail had said, making more specific the monitoring protocols. If you don't monitor, you have no idea what people are being exposed to, and the jury is definitely out about health effects, and as the other gentleman who spoke, I don't remember his name, the technology is evolving, and there are safer and better ways than giving absolute free rein to the wireless companies. Thank you.
Okay, great. So the reason I put this on today's agenda was to get an opportunity to hear what's coming before town meeting, and next week we'll have an opportunity to debate it. Thank you, Gail, for coming in. Thank you for your contributions. We're going to touch on one more article, which is Article 42, before we hit our last item for the evening. And we'll have this discussion again next week at town meeting. Sure. So in the packet, I'll just introduce it while you're settling. In the packet is, on page 44, is the language of a replacement motion. So the select board voted to recommend no action on the previous motion that's printed in the briefing book, and the proponents have changed the motion, and it now reads, Ms. Carlin moves that the town take affirmative action on Article 42 as follows: that the town urge the select board to request that the town manager investigate and report to the board on the feasibility of adopting and offering a townwide ratepayer composting program as proposed by the Concord Carlisle High School Sunrise Movement Club. So, and just introduce yourself. And
my name is Rebecca Meeks, and I'm a chemistry and physics teacher at CCHS. I'm also the Sunrise Club's advisor. So I'm here speaking for Ileana, although she does a much better job than I do.
Okay.
You've seen her talk.
Yep.
And so the previous motion was essentially to
implement a program.
Investigate and implement. And so can you talk a little bit about, I assume the Sunrise Club got together and proposed this?
We've had a lot of feedback from many different areas and groups in town, and we thought that this was still in the spirit of the original motion, but hoping to put less on Concord Public Works and, directly.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've been part of that conversation. I think the original motion and the feedback, there's a lot of it that was unknown, a lot of the economics, a lot of the staff time, and a lot of the costs.
Right.
So stepping back and getting that information, that's the feasibility, is a step. So it's really pulling back on the implementation more.
Yeah. Do a
let's figure it
feasibility
out,
study,
you know.
really.
Ileana did a great job at Concord Can this morning.
She did.
Very well received.
Yeah.
It's very,
Yeah, it was great.
it's much clearer than it was.
But have we already looked at this?
No, we
That's
deferred.
like,
We did look at it.
No, not the article, not the
Do you
article.
want to talk?
What I'm
about
asking
those
is, so this is saying urge the town
demonstrations?
manager to go
Oh,
and
Yeah, yeah.
investigate.
We haven't
Investigate and
discussed
But
it.
if it's like, hey, I'm gonna go investigate something I've already investigated and
Yeah.
concluded that,
yeah, have we?
you know, so that's
So-
what, I mean, like, is this is this a new activity?
So we did run a demonstration program, and maybe Megan can share a little bit about that.
Sure. There was a pilot program that ran from 2022 to 2025, and it was a drop-off composting program through the sustainability division, where residents could drop off organic waste at 2 locations, one at the parking lot at Harvey Wheeler and one at the CCHS campus. And that ultimately, we did get some good feedback over the years of running that program. But it ended last year due to a number of factors and public health concerns about contamination, kind of the tipping over of the bins, and thinking about what it would cost to update the program and invest in potentially kind of new materials to put a lock on it and kind of retrain everyone. And since the Climate Action Committee in the town, through the capital budget last year, appropriated funds to update the Climate Action Plan, the recommendation at the time was, let's see how this plays out as a priority for the town, with many other kind of sustainability and climate.
Sorry, plays out as part of the
plan.
plan.
The Climate Action
From a
Plan.
priorities
Yeah.
perspective.
Right, because it would cost, it would be, we had a certain amount in the budget to pay for the pickup through Black Earth, but to, look at reinvesting in the infrastructure, you need to make a case to, ask in the budget to increase that line item. And so is this a priority of the community? That outreach process is happening right now. The Climate Action Committee is working closely with the vendor Weston and Sampson. And we have so far engaged with the Climate Action Committee and staff throughout a number of departments. And we're gearing up for targeted stakeholder conversations and public forums to hear from the community about what their top priorities are, partially to try to meet our climate emission goals. So, what is the focus? So that pilot program ended.
But we're doing it.
No.
No, the pilot program was
It
discontinued.
ended last summer.
No, I understand, yes. The pilot program was discontinued. But what I'm saying is, work
It
is
sounds like we're doing,
ongoing.
yes.
There is,
I'm saying
What
work,
was a plan?
Yes.
work is ongoing to
That's right.
say,
You're
what could we do? How would it fit with our other priorities? Can it be part of the climate action plan?
Well, I think if the climate
That's what I'm
action,
saying. It's not done, but work is happening.
This is a very specific
Yeah,
thing.
Right.
yeah.
This is really
This is about composting.
talking to a vendor, finding out what they'll offer, independent of any potential staff, other than even maybe independent billing. It's not clear how this would be built.
Yeah.
But it's just that urging the town to engage with a vendor to see
So-
what a
I
turnkey
think this is more
what a turnkey
tactical,
program would
and
look.
that's more,
I'm just trying to avoid overlapping activity.
Yeah.
And
No, I
like,
understand.
hey,
That's a good-
you know, let's
It's not
add
necessar-
on something.
It's
to-
not necessarily a town-run program, and that's kind of the feasibility. It's a vendor program that we would that the town would sponsor.
yeah, and so what I'm getting at is that in light of the fact that this particular article is coming before town meeting, and the motion under the article is changing from urge the town to adopt and negotiate a ratepayer composting plan through a pre-existing organic waste disposal company, that's the motion as printed in the briefing book, to this new motion, which is going to say, urge the select board to request that the town manager investigate and report to the board on the feasibility of adopting a plan. Given that that's the motion, and Paul, I think we have you down to talk to that, do we want to have a discussion about potentially changing our recommendation to town meeting for action based on the new direction, is what we're covering today? And understanding what we just heard about what's happened in the past and what.
Well, we have to discuss either now or before the town meeting. I mean,
We can.
the obstacles that cause us to vote no were the unknowns on the financial
Right.
side.
Right.
This kind of lowers the bar. It
Yeah.
doesn't commit the town to anything but look into it.
But receive a report of an investigation. And I would say, and even though it says on the feasibility, it doesn't necessarily say as much of a feasibility study. And I'm thinking about the discussion we just had about the complexity of utility billing and
Right.
the reconciliation between the CMLP, the NISC system doing utility billing and the demands that we place every time we spin up a new service that has knock-on effects that show up in things like our ability to close the books because there's change each and every year. So those are the costs that I know are on the minds. And I believe the Public Works Commission is also going to try to visit this again. So we may not want to actually take a vote on that tonight, but I think we should be prepared before this article is presented to.
I think the feasibility study would answer the questions, whether it's going to be too expensive to bill or too.
Right.
Exactly.
We even have to
There
do
are
it.
costs in even doing the study, depending,
Right.
the staff time in doing the study. But, it's to answer some of these questions about,
Right.
is it feasible for the town?
The benefits of this are that it brings composting more, it makes people more aware of the benefits of composting because
Well, and it helps
people don't.
Our
And it-
mission goals.
And it helps our mission goals. And it also, to me, it also is helpful that we're giving some visibility to the work that the high school students are doing.
Right.
That has a big benefit to me. And it's asking for a feasibility study to answer the questions that we are bringing up. So
It may
it's
prove to be
changed,
infeasible, but at least we'll have some data.
but at least we'll know, and we'll have the conversation. So it changes my attitude towards this.
All right.
So,
So, if I could just say, my request would be if the select board is inclined to support the amendment,
Yep.
that the select board commits to identifying this as one of its goals for the fiscal
got it.
year, because this is not something that was necessarily on our radar. So we would have to allocate time to
just-
do
It wasn't in the
Yes.
budget.
Or
Wasn't it?
potentially just put it into the,
But can we
you,
put it in as part of what we're already doing?
But
That's
it's
all
not. They're
I'm-
building the plan, they're not implementing the plan, right?
think
They're
all-
just identifying potential.
But I think even if it is part of the updated climate action plan, there are going to, that's a multi-year plan, and there are things that are going to be pulled out and identified as year one goals. And so if this is something that you want to support, whether it's in the plan or it's coming forward in the motion, that it be a fiscal '27 goal so that we can prioritize it.
yeah, or it goes into the mix for priority-based budgeting with other priorities that we might specify so that maybe it's not even 27, it could be later than that.
You know-
Well, I think-
I don't envision this to be a heavy lift as far as the feasibility study, and this may be tailor-made for actually
Intern or something. Yeah, summer
a
intern.
subcommittee of Public Works.
It doesn't even say feasibility study, it just says report on
Yeah,
feasibility.
it says report on the feasibility.
Yeah.
I'm fine with putting this in the select board goals if that's.
Okay.
'cause
I think
understand-
that would be
I understand
helpful,
where you're
yes.
coming from, Carrie, I really do.
Right.
And I'll raise my hand to do this, okay, to do a feasibility study. I don't think,
I don't
really,
think it's
you
I'm
know.
sure the Sunrise Club would help because we are very passionate about this.
Yeah.
And
You
we've
would,
done a lot of
you would,
research
you would.
already.
So,
Okay.
so if that,
I could,
I'll help you. I'll be your deputy.
so there you go.
Yeah.
Your deputy compost.
I think it would be,
Practical, then the
let's hear
waiting for
from
the.
Carrie.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
don't misinterpret my question. I'm just trying to make sure we're not
Understand.
adding on
No,
more
it's a
work,
good- you're
more
right.
cost, more, there's a lot of things that people want to do.
No,
This
you're
is
I
a
don't
cool
want to
thing,
add
it's
any
important.
work to the
That's all.
staff here.
I think
That's all.
that's a great.
It's just either-
Let's hear from
Yeah.
Carrie, just
No, I
Doing it in that
let her
context,
finish the
that's all.
sentence.
it's helpful for you to prioritize it.
Yep.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
That's all you're saying.
I can tell you, just sitting here, there's no way the town can offer this service for $15 a month, which is what is being offered in the marketplace. What we might be able to do is to negotiate a better rate
Yes.
or something like that. So we're not going to be doing a detailed analysis because we can't offer it for that price.
There are constraints, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Are we
so
ready to
Good
vote, or
enough.
do you want to wait?
Or we vote on it before the
I would like to
town meeting.
may hold this until I've been able to confirm whether the
Okay.
Public Works Commission is also going to
Great.
weigh in on this. So
Good.
let's,
That's fine.
let's take this again on Monday. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Pat.
I'll hold off from
Thank you.
preparing my comments.
Yes.
I'll figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah, this will be an on the fly. We always have fun with those. If we decide on Monday or even Tuesday, because this is eighth from last at the meeting, so we can pretty much be sure this is a
But we got
Wednesday
wireless
night.
coming
We're
up
not going to
late,
get through it on
so.
Monday?
There'll be three
No,
people
we're
in
not
the
going to get
audience.
to this. We will not
so
get to
close
this on Monday. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Appreciate you coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the work you're doing with the students.
With the kids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
They're going to
Okay,
love
one
working
more.
with Mary.
And Paul.
Okay, last but not least, the,
That's right, Mary.
Mary, the
Oh,
cultural
yes,
district
Sue.
charge.
Sue's here.
Sue's here.
Sue,
Great.
Sue is the chair of the
there.
West Concord Cultural District.
Yeah.
This is the group that brought us last week, if you
Right.
remember, the sidewalk decals.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
sculpture in the Junction Park.
Yep.
You've also had the poetry phone
Yep.
booth, the pianos. So they do great work in West
You
Concord.
brought us
Right.
culture.
And so what's changing?
So what we're doing, what the committee itself did is they had the initiative to rewrite their charge to make it a little bit crisper,
Okay.
more in line with what the work they're actually doing, and also to get ready for maybe some changes that will come down from the Mass Cultural Council around funding requirements. Is that accurate?
You nailed it, yeah.
Okay.
I had one question. How many members?
That was my question. That was my question. That was my question. How many members?
Go ahead, Sue.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So it was funny because we had this debate, well, the Mass Cultural Council's probably going to change it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Do we need to be specific? And nobody
Yeah.
in the room could answer. And it's like, well, why put a number there? We'll just say members. And then Mary had called out to me like, well, you're at 7, or you can do 5 or 7. So we didn't really know
Yeah.
that there was that kind of.
Well, define your quorum for your meeting. I mean, that's important, and then
Yeah.
are there openings on your committee? It's-
Right.
Yeah, it's really important to understand.
So totally understood the question.
Yeah.
I just said, let's stay at 7. We're happy at
Okay.
7. It was more just like preparing for
Okay.
potential.
Okay.
But so,
So-
would you add that into
You
the?
have to
Okay,
modify
yeah.
this somehow
Yeah.
to say 7.
Otherwise, it looked fine to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
So do we need to vote?
Do you want to make a modification? We can put it on a future consent calendar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want
Why don't we-
to do that? 'Cause-
Is there anything you want to add, Sue, to?
No, I was gonna say, it's truly that the charge was 10 years old, you know, we've
Yeah.
kind of evolved, we
It's-
just needed to tighten it up because it's
Okay.
kind of meandering or whatever, so, yeah, so,
It looks good.
yeah, so
It
we'll just
definitely
add
does.
the word 7 in, and if you want to do consent agenda,
Yeah.
then that's.
Yeah.
I'll add that. It'll be on next May 18th.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
or
it could be
April.
on
We
the-
could do it next
Yeah,
week.
or
Could do it
if
next
We'll do it
If it's
quickly.
ready, it could happen on Tuesday.
We'll do
Yeah.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
We'll make it
Great.
happen.
Great.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Excellent.
Thanks for being
Thank you.
here.
Okay,
thank you.
all right, making space for liaison reports.
I do have one update because the ZBA met on Thursday and they reviewed both of the 40B projects that were presenting project changes. And the determination was that in both cases, the changes were deemed insubstantial, which means the projects can proceed with some paperwork filing. Just one point of note for those around affordability on the Novo project. In one of the buildings, there's been a change in the mix of
Yeah.
the affordability, so they've just reduced the number of two-bedroom affordables from 13 to 12, but they've increased the one-bedroom affordable from 8 to 9. They changed some amenity places, some amenity spaces and updated finishes. So
Which project
Novo.
is
that's Novo
the Novo?
in just one of the buildings. So it was a
But it's just a
same
swap.
number
It's a
of affordable units, but a switch in type.
Sounds
Of
like
just
one
one.
less affordable bedroom.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. And then Thoreau had some increase in height, which was predominantly because they had to implement energy standards that made some of the
Increase in height?
walls and roofs a little thicker, a little higher.
Great.
So, but they're also implementing 1/3 of the asphalt, and Thoreau is going to be porous. which is interesting. I didn't know that we had porous asphalt, so
Where's
good
pavement? Yeah,
environmental
that's great.
option, so.
Yeah.
I just have a quick one. First of all, I apologize, my liaison report didn't make it out of Kristen's inbox.
She was
It's there.
sick last week.
But one thing I want to mention, and
Yeah.
you started out congratulating the public ceremonies and celebration. I just specifically, Holly, Nick, Alyssa,
Yeah.
and Nancy did a fabulous job.
Yeah.
They've, I think, identified one additional member, but they're still short 3 members. So now's the time, public, if you're listening. It's a good time because it's kind of low season for them. They have one
Yeah.
more Memorial Day, but, just, it's really interesting how they put that together. So
Yeah.
they need some more people.
Every event is very well orchestrated.
Very
It's
well
really nice
orchestrated, very
ceremonies.
impressive.
And they've got great jackets.
Yeah. True.
Okay.
So the only other thing I just wanted to quickly say before the end of the meeting is, Mark, I know that there's maybe some brief select board meetings before town meeting, but I just wanted to say thank you. I know that it's the last big one you're sort of running here,
big
right?
one.
So you know what I mean? So I just wanted to kind of call out and say, it's been a pleasure doing this with you, and I look forward to getting through town meeting next week, but also just to sort of acknowledge, the work that you've done, and not only as the chair, but as a member of the select board, and, all the good work that you've put in. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll second that
Kudos,
motion.
yes.
All right.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah, all in favor.
Yeah.
I don't know, during the conversation, it almost sounded like you were staying on. You were talking about
For a
June,
while
things
there,
going on.
talking about June meetings.
Well, you still got to
I know.
organize. You
Still got it.
Work's not done until.
Still have to tee you up for
Right.
the next step.
That's right.
Yeah, so we'll be meeting around the agenda, and we will be focused on starting to plan for what comes next. But thank you. It's been a real pleasure to work with all of you.
Yeah.
I have enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah. It's been great.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great role model.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in
All in
favor?
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Great.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.